Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Uncut and Unfiltered. Today, we are dealing with a Highland single malt Scotch whiskey. And despite my t-shirt, no, it is not Glengoyne. We're just here on our wonderful trip with Ian McLeod. We're very lucky to have Iain Forteath here with us today from Angus, Dundee. Iain, very welcome to the podcast. How are you, sir?
A pleasure to be here. Yeah, great to see you guys.
Thank you so much for joining us. You are the master blender for Angus Dundee. Today, you brought Glencadam to talk us through.
Indeed.
Tell us a little bit about Glencadam, because I know that Ian here, Posh Scotch, is a massive fan, particularly of Glencadam, also of Tom and Tell, right?
Yeah, he's got good taste.
He does have good taste. That's fair play. No, absolutely. But tell us a little bit about it. It's not one that I know huge amounts about.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty cool little gem of a distillery, really. I mean, it's not little in a kind of micro distilling scale, but it's been there for a long time. So Glencadam is based up in Brecon, so in Angus. Closest distillery to us is Fettercairn, to give you a kind of geographical whiskey comparison.
Yep.
But yeah, it's been there since 1825, has lasted all this time without expanding like some of the others or contracting and closing like some of the other whiskies of its era. Yep. And yeah, it makes a kind of old school style of spirit, I guess. It's got a fruity and spicy style of profile, which is true to old Glencadam. Doesn't try to be a particularly modern distillery,
right? But
its kind of demand and spirit style has kept it going all these for almost two centuries now, which is
200 years. This is the thing. 1825. Wow, what a mark you're coming up on. I'm sure you'll tell us about some plans coming to celebrate that marker as we go through the episode. Posh, tell us, how excited are you for this now this evening? Is there anything that's standing out to you on the table?
Do you know what? The 18 disappeared out of the core range for quite some time.
Okay.
And it's been a very, very long time since I've had it.
Cool.
So I'm really looking forward to that, actually.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. And Stevie over there on the decks, 1, 2, 1, 2. How are you, sir? Drowned Pirate?
I'm all right, mate. It's been a long day, but I'm excited to get into Glencadam because
Do you know Glencadam?
Yeah, but I don't think I've delved into anything from you guys. Obviously, Tom and Tell I've had quite a bit of. So yeah, I'm excited to taste it.
Cool. Me too. I think I'm in a similar boat to you. I've tried a lot of Tom and Tell.
Yeah.
For some reason, haven't had a huge amount of time with Glencadam. So great that you brought this one along. Really excited to get stuck in.
I kind of find that interesting from both of you. Tom and Tell, obviously, widely available. You got supermarket stuff. Glencadam, I think one of the reasons that it kind of first attracted to me was, it is kind of a whiskey drinker's whiskey. Yeah. It's all natural color, non-chill filtered, 46% or above in some cases.
Yeah.
And, it's well presented, kind of classic whiskey, right? No nonsense.
Yeah, I think, generally, Glencadam's is a bit under the radar for a lot of whiskey fans. That's changing year on year, and it's cool seeing that traction. But so in a way, I'm surprised, but not surprised, because there's lots of great whiskies out there. But people who tend to try Glencadam tend to know it. Hopefully, we'll ask you again at the end of today and see how you feel about it. But it's quite a cool distillery, interesting spirit style.
For sure. Yeah, I'm excited. So where are we starting? We're starting is this your entry level core range 10?
Yeah, it's the first in our core range, I guess. There is an entry level Glencadam called American Oak Reserve, which is about 30 quid and is a steel as a kind of
non-age statement.
Non-age statement. Yep. Yeah, as a Tuesday night, throw yourself on the sofa dram. Yep. But if you don't know Glencadam, the 10 is literally our bread and butter. That's the style that I show people to get you to understand the distillery. Not just because it's kind of first in the range, but it really shows off that spirit character of the distillery style.
And I like that it's at 46%. You're not watering stuff down
indeed
in your entry level expressions to flat 40, which a lot of people do. So
what's interesting, so Glencadam has actually been 46% for longer than it was cool to be 46%.
Right. Okay.
It wasn't the first, but actually I think it's fair to say that Glendronach was one of these distilleries that everyone got really excited about chill filtration and higher proof. I hope I'm okay to mention other distilleries.
Because they're all say whatever you want to say. Absolutely.
But yeah, I think what's interesting is it's always been that balance of color versus presentation. Because actually Glencadam, although it was 46 non-chill filtered it's been that way for almost 2 decades now. In presentation, still people weren't buying Glencadam 10 as such because it's quite a pale dram.
Right.
So I think that now it's ticking all the boxes that people want in whiskey, but actually it was doing that before people wanted that.
Right. Yeah.
Not that we're like a trailblazer, but it's quite cool because it's been that kind of, that way that's...
But I love that. Like you said at the beginning there, nearly 200 years, you haven't grown, but you haven't shrunk. You're still here and you're doing the same thing. And it's funny how trends go in and out. And the fact that you've just stayed true to what you do. This is how we do it. This is what we like. And now all of a sudden, oh, well, that's pretty fucking trendy, actually, guys. We like a bit of that. So good for you. I like that. Iain has not wasted any time getting the 10 in the class. Good man yourself.
I'll know
I love
somebody
it.
as well, to be fair.
So...
What do you love about that?
No, yeah, you already sorted everybody.
Sorry,
no, one for everyone. Don't. What do we think straight away? I mean, that is vanilla through and through,
Sweet,
right?
malty, lots of vanilla, custard creams,
Custard
creams. That's great.
biscuits, vanilla, cream.
Yeah. Very
I think
nice.
when you were saying that you were feeling a bit kind of burnt out from today and a big one, hopefully this will give you a kind of
sorry,
nice
I didn't mean to be
bright
negative.
zest. No, not at all.
The podcast with that energy.
no.
Don't worry, we'll have plenty of comments about how miserable Stevie looks, feels, and is talking.
People like a good jab at Stevie, don't they? Yeah, absolutely.
But this is quite a kind of dry and bright kind of dram at the same time. So actually, I always describe this as our aperitif whiskey. It's got this kind of white winey, almost kind of zest to it. So actually, if you're feeling a bit whiskeyed out, then hopefully this will be a nice kind of bright kind of treat on the palate. But
That's interesting when you say it's almost, it's whiny. I know what you mean. That's very interesting.
It's
sorry, color wise, especially, I think that's the thing. Like you said, it's got a straw kind of white winey kind of color, right?
Yeah. I think it's the brightness of the fruit that's in the Glencadam spirit that gives you this kind of that wine-like character as well. I use this a lot for food pairing. I'm trying to do kind of different styles of food pairing because it's quite sharp. Whiskey doesn't have acidity in the same way that wine does.
Yeah.
But actually, that sharpness and that spice that you get makes it a whiskey that you can make drinks with that wouldn't maybe be a standard kind of malt mix. But also for food pairings, so it's really good with things like smoked salmon or oysters, where you can kind of cut through that kind of fattiness or that kind of oily character.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's quite fun to trial different pairings with it, and it's quite fun to use it in that setting. It's also ridiculously good out of the freezer. It tastes like an old Solero if you ever get a chance to try it. I mean, it's complete sacrilege, but it's also quite a good.
Hey, look, if it's yummy, it's yummy, right?
It tastes good.
Fair enough.
I'll leave you the bottle. You can fire it in the freezer and try it tomorrow. That's it.
So what's really interesting to me about this is just American oak.
Yeah,
Hoggies.
all bourbon cask.
Yeah. So this is really, really interesting because for me, you said drying, and it is drying, and it's kind of tannic. And that's the thing that draws me to the wine side of it. It's really unexpected. It's quite different. You get that, like you say, bright, malty, biscuitiness. Yes, absolutely. But that drying style is really interesting. And I would imagine, I don't want to do it just yet. I want to enjoy it as it is. But I would imagine cutting this with quite a lot of water still works.
Yeah.
Do you find that as a blender?
Yeah, so you can use this to quite you can tone it down quite a lot and it still holds its own.
Yeah.
I think so the reason that the distillery's been around for so long really is that it's a really good blending ingredient.
Right.
And that's so the reason we acquired it was Robert, who's our master distiller. When Glencadam came up for sale, he was really adamant on buying this distillery because it's like what Mortlach was, if that makes sense. So Mortlach was always the whiskey drinkers or the whiskey blenders whiskey or the whiskey kind of industry dram. And it's still a great whiskey. I'm not saying that's a negative, but it wasn't like a big commercial brand. It was a brand that people who worked in the industry knew because of its blending potential. Glencadam kind of has that in the basis that it's the top notes and the brightness of the spirit means if you have a blended whiskey, even if you add 1 or 2% of this to your blend, you can kind of give you a really nice top note to it. So that works in reverse as well for dilution as well, because there's this brightness that kind of still holds. Yeah. If you've got a very classic kind of malty whiskey, which is a terrible terminology to use, but that kind of butterscotchy, nutty, kind of classic dram, if you dial that down to like 25% with water, it goes a bit flat and go a bit thin and watery, whereas Glencadam, you'll still get that kind of fruit character coming through.
A highball whiskey, yeah?
Yeah, highball dram, absolutely.
Yeah, right, that's how I would look at this, definitely. But equally, like you say, I love pairing that with smoked salmon. I can imagine that being phenomenal with smoked salmon. Really, really yummy.
Yeah. I think it would go quite well with a bit of cheese as well, actually.
Well, yeah, so my kind of middle-class sounding life hack / food pairing for this is actually with shavings of Parmesan. And that sounds posh, but what I really mean is attack a block of Parmesan with a... no, not in the glass, but alongside. But
just shavings.
Yeah, so attack a Parmesan with a potato peeler is what it really means. But particularly like a Parmesan that's kind of a bit older, so 24 month plus, but you get a bit of salt crystals there. If you let... So within the world of food pairing, you have complementary pairings and you have congruent pairings. So you have pairings that are kind of flavors that go together that work well as a pairing, but congruent pairings are the pairings where you get two totally different flavors.
One cuts through the other.
Yeah, so if you have a bit of Parmesan, let it melt in your tongue a little, have a sip of Glencadam 10, it becomes like dried apricots and like panna cotta.
Lovely.
So you get this really interesting fruit note that isn't in the dram, isn't in the cheese, but it kind of comes together as this really cool mix.
Cool.
Do you guys know Dram Busters over in TB Watson's?
Yeah.
In Dumfries. So I once stank out a hotel doing that exact pairing. So it was a summer's day for 110 people in the hotel where they hold their tastings. Peeled a load of Parmesan, left it on everyone's tasting mats, left the room for an hour and a half, and they thought someone had died.
Right,
so peel your Parmesan close to the drinking time, not
Fair enough.
not before.
Lovely. What a wonderful place to start this is. It's very easygoing, very bright,
It tastes,
enjoyable.
the ABV tastes a lot higher than it is to me. If I was to taste this blind, I would go a good
In a good
5%
way?
higher. Yeah.
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 It's got a nice body to it.
There's a nice body to it, yeah, and there's a lot of oak on the back there for me. You know, a lot of oak.
Yeah.
Not in a nice way, but just,
Those tannins.
yes.
That's what I was, that dryness, and it
yeah,
comes, but that's what I'm surprised about. That kind of, it's not tannic in the way that most people, or that even that I would normally think of it, it's not astringent.
No.
But it's a completely different dimension that I wasn't expecting. It's really lovely.
Robust, I think, is like
Robust,
the word.
yeah, great word.
It's kind of like how I mean, obviously it's bourbon barrels, and therefore it's not how whiskey was 100 years ago, because we didn't have bourbon barrels in the industry then. But it's kind of like how you might romantically imagine a kind of whiskey from a slightly bygone age, right?
Yeah, I think that the reason it's got a real kind of fan base, I guess, in the whiskey world is that it gives you quite a lot of body, and it's not an expensive dram either. It's about 45 quid. So you get the brightness of the spirit being 10, so it's got some development, but it's not a super old whiskey, but you get structure and body from the wood, which is kind of a nice compromise. So you get a freshness and a brightness given with mouthfeel and structure, which sometimes you have to compromise one for the other. So you can get alcohol burn easily enough. You can have a 3-year-old and do it at 60% and it'll give you structure, but it's more of a kind of, on your tongue. And
A slap in the face, yeah. No, absolutely.
We'll save that for the end. But this has got a nice kind of contrast. And I think that's why people quite like Glencadam 10. If you've got a whiskey collection at home, as I'm sure that anyone who's listening to this and yourselves have too, occupational hazard as it is, it's quite nice to have this as a dram on the basis that it's not similar to a lot of other whiskies.
Right.
Obviously, every brand says that. I'm not trying to give that the whole spiel, but Glencadam 10 is quite standout. It's a good mix. If you've got a broad selection of flavors and styles in your whiskey cabinet, the 10-year-old will give you something that's a bit different, bit kind of bright and fresh, and you can kind of drop it anywhere in a tasting as well, which is quite fun. So it doesn't get drowned out by heavier styles because of that body, that spice that you're talking about, the tannin note. You can drop it in towards the end. You can have a peated whiskey then this, and you'll still taste it, rather than being lost behind heavier flavors. It's kind of a fun drag and drop whiskey that you can put into.
No, I like that. That's a really interesting point. I love that. So, out of interest, then, you're saying obviously the 18 hasn't been around for a while. I'd love to understand from yourself, as the new blender, what's going on with the range here. How has it developed and changed since you've joined? What are you trying to achieve with it? And why did the 18 disappear?
There's a 3-year production gap. So so that's literally due to the marching on of time.
Okay.
So between 2000 to 2003, there was no Glencadam produced. It was owned by Ali Demek before that.
Right.
When they kind of merged into what is now Pernod Ricard with most of the distilleries, Glencadam was one of the ones that got left behind, so it was mothballed. Okay. We were actually in negotiation for the distillery pretty early on, but it kind of took a while to iron out a deal. And Paul, who's now retired, who was our warehouse manager for a while, actually had the fantastic job of babysitting Glencadam for 3 years while it was silent, and he used to read a book and practice his putting.
Oh, really?
And short wedge drives and chips while he was walking around the side. So there was a 3-year hiatus. So because of that, the 15 disappeared for a while, and then the 18 disappeared for a while. The 21's currently out of stock. So that's for the 3-year gap.
Fair enough. Okay. And then what about the other end of the scale? You said obviously the next one that we're going to move on to now in a minute is something new.
Yeah.
I'm noticing Madeira, Amarone. Over here we talked about port. Lots of different cask styles going on here, which I love. I love a robust whiskey that can be used in all different sorts of styles. is there like a classic Glencadam style, or are you looking to explore and expand and make people challenge themselves?
No, it's a good point. I think so. Actually, the core range in Glencadam is all bourbon cask.
Right.
So the core range for us is the 10-year-old, the 15, the 18, and 21. So that's the kind
all
of classic
just
Glencadam.
bourbon,
all bourbon,
untouched,
all the way through.
Cool. I love that.
So I think that bourbon casks, and again, I'm preaching to the converted, but it's a really good way to show off your spirit character. These cask finishes we have are great, and again, it's my job to kind of balance that spirit character amongst these other wood types. But in bourbon, there's less places to hide. But also, it's a good way to show off that style, that brightness, that fruitiness of Glencadam. Kind of it sings in bourbon. So in a way, I try not to mess that up. But it's nice to have other varietals there as well. So most of the cask finishes we do are special releases.
Okay.
With the exceptions of the Reserva series, the next one we're going to try is part of a little series we did. Of making whiskey relatively affordable. And I think that we talked about this before we started recording. The age range of whiskey is becoming more expensive. So for me, as a blender, I'm trying to make sure we've got whiskies that we can have at both ends of the scale.
Accessible.
So the Reserva range was launched. We did a whiskey called Reserva Andalusia, which I know you know.
Yep.
Iain, but the Reserva Andalusia was kind of a first dabble in that style, and that was to give us an Oloroso sherry Glencadam style similar to the 10 in price point. Before that, the only sherried whiskey we had in the range was a 19-year-old. It was stunning, but it was £110.
Right.
So the Reserva range kind of came off the back. The Andalusia got really good reviews. The rating was great. And the feedback was really good from our customers. And so part of that was I said, well, why don't we try and do that with other cask types? So we followed a similar recipe base. And now we've got a plethora of different styles. So we've got a white port, Bordeaux, Pinot Noir, which is a Burgundy cask. We've got a tawny port, Reserva PX, which has just got the best Highland whiskey in the World Whiskey Awards. And then this one I brought along, I thought I'd show you because it's literally hot off the press. So this is getting launched.
Well, yes, this isn't out yet, but it will be by the time this podcast launches.
Indeed. So you're one of the first people. In fact, that bottle. So the drams that are out of that are the only people that have tasted it so far. So
another first you hear at Uncut. God, I love it. Thank you so much, Iain. That's very kind of you to bring this one this evening. So how long has this been in the works then?
So this one is one of the newer parts of the Reserva range. So I've actually, my role with Angus & Dee, before I was master blender, I was a senior blender in the group.
Cool.
And looking at, it had a dubious title which got changed, which was Foreign Cask Policy. It was kind of looking at wood types that we hadn't used before. It's not called that anymore, don't worry. But effectively, my role kind of developed in the company from becoming part of the blending team. Then I was in charge of looking at new types of wood. So being a blending company that's been on the go since the 1950s, a lot of our whiskey already has a designation. We have customers around the world that we make bespoke blends for.
Yep.
So us messing around with our spirit can be detrimental to end orders. So we were literally relatively risk adverse. So we used bourbon casks, Oloroso sherry casks, and ruby port casks. That's all we had in the company when I joined.
Wow.
We now have about, I think now 18 or 19 types of wood on the go.
Fantastic.
A lot of those are ready. Some have been experimenting with. And the Reserva range is showing off some of these cask types. So a lot of them have been a younger version of an older expression as well. So we have like an older one and a younger one. Amarone, it's the first time we released. We haven't got a Glencadam older Amarone yet, but this is the first time we've ever done a Glencadam in these particular casks.
And Iain, how much involvement did you have in this?
Everything. I sourced I didn't distill the spirit, but everything
so
other than that.
So this is your baby, yeah?
It is. It's a winery I used to sell.
Because obviously your role is fairly new, is it?
I've been blending with Angus & Dee since 2017. But, But master blender since 2021.
Okay. So you oversaw this completely, yeah?
Yeah. So I literally, these are from casks from a winery that I used to do a lot of work with in my wine days. So we've brought in these barrels. They're really interesting casks from a really interesting winery, and so I sort of
first fill in here. How long is the finishing period?
So it's a mixture. So we've got two. So there's deliberately a mixture of ages in these products. So the kind of the gapping we use for the Reserva range is roughly between 4 and 8 years old. We don't hide behind that. We just don't call it that on the front of the label. It's designed for the taste.
Yep.
And the finishing period is between 18 and 24 months. So, so we do the older spirit for slightly less and the younger spirit for slightly more, if that makes sense for the finishes.
And sorry, did you say it's always first fill casks or?
Well, at the moment it is because they're all new.
For sure. But you'll reuse them.
Yes, but they probably won't get reused for this particular range. But if casks have vitality, we still use them again.
Yeah.
But for these types, they're first filled by the fact that it's the first time we're doing them. Again, I know we're not the first people using Amarone casks. But in my head, I've kind of the barrels I've sourced to do with both distilleries. I've tried to think the profile of our whiskies and what they will work best in.
And this reserve range, they've all been priced around about, they're all
Mid-40s.
mid-40s, right?
And it's kind of designed to do that.
Very affordable.
Yeah, and it's showing off casks that are sometimes quite expensive to buy as well. I think that, like I said, you'll find things like Madeira, and you'll find distilleries that have Amarone finishes and things, but a lot of them are older and they'll tend to cost you upwards, which is not a negative. It's just sometimes people, you might want to try that style without.
Absolutely. I mean, without sounding like any kind of criticism at all, because I think it's a really positive point, like these are often the cheapest way of finding a particular finish within Scotch whiskey.
Yeah, and to be honest, the reason that I kind of
affordable,
really...
Ian.
Affordable, yeah.
There we go. Sorry,
but I know what you mean.
Right.
Though.
Yeah,
and genuinely, this has been a bit of a kind of baby for myself as well. I think that as a blender, so the people that got me really into whiskey were my dad and my granddad. And my granddad was a tanker driver, and he came from a line of fishermen. He wasn't flush. He wasn't drinking 40-year-old whiskies at the weekend.
Yeah.
But I always remember sharing drams with them, and it was always a special thing. But the whiskies we were drinking were, I wasn't into whiskey enough to remember the drams we were having, but they tend to be what was on offer or whatever he'd picked up as Malt of the Month in the supermarket or his local shop.
For sure.
And we you guys will be in the same bubble. We're privileged to try these amazing old whiskies, and they're immense to be able to taste these pieces of history.
But not everyone's in the lucky position that we're in, and it's wonderful, like you say, to have something that's accessible, price conscious,
Absolutely.
that they can jump in, Amarone, Madeira, get involved. And it's wonderful. What I think is really great about this from a Glencadam point of view is being able to try the core range being all bourbon, and then see how these different maturation points
100%.
affect your spirit, because you don't have anything else. So sorry, just so I understand, were you saying that you had some age statement versions of these as well?
With the exception of this one that we're literally just trying, only because it's
It
still,
will do.
At some point, there's
For
a
sure.
spoiler alert. But yeah, so the others, so I mean, the Madeira, we have a younger version and an older version.
Okay.
And the younger Madeira version is also coming out at the same time. So there you go. That's two.
And are they ever like age statement? Oh, sorry.
yes.
It's got a 15 on it. Sorry, I didn't see that. Cool. Okay.
So with the it's
the
probably not going to
17
try
up
to
there.
there's a 17 PX over there, and there's no age statement PX as well.
Fantastic. I love that. That's so cool. 17 against the 18, the 50. Yeah, that's
And,
really,
I think that's the thing. No distillery wants to be a dust gatherer. And we've all got that bottle in our collection that you bought on a whim and you go, oh, actually, it's not really my style.
Right.
But I also think that lots of people will look at expensive cask finishes and say, oh, I wonder what an Amarone tastes like in a whiskey finish, but I'm not going to pay £100 to find out. Or Pedro Jimenez or Madeira. Or we've tried to do a mixture of more popular cask types, but also some rarer ones. And I think that, the idea was, to make some great whiskey for the money, but also to show people... It's a long finish as well. I mean, you're showing off this cask type in its entirety. If we're going to do it, we'd rather leave it long enough to let it kind of sing.
Particularly for a non-age statement, right? If you're saying that 4 to 8 years and it's 18 to 24 months finish, that's potentially up to half of the life, really. You know what I mean? That's pretty cool.
It's again, that kind of method. We take our time. I think Angus and Lee generally, both of our distilleries they have a great following and they're known in the whiskey community, but we're not churning out bottles by the tens of thousands. And I think that the advantage of that is that we can take our time on releases. No one's saying, oh, when's the Glencadam Amarone coming out? So because this is a brand new product, it's one that I can take my time out and release when we think is ready. So as I say, the recipe's copied and pasted, I guess, from a recipe I made up ages ago, which was the Glencadam Reserve Andalusia. So that was the kind of first of this Reserve range.
Okay.
That really worked. We don't just replicate it, but we kind of use a similar balance of aging and finishing.
Okay.
And we've trialed that with a bunch of different cask types. So it's been fun. And these are some of the last of that range. At the moment anyway, but you'll have a little completed range of about 8 different finishes that are all at the kind of under 50 quid mark, which is
fantastic.
Whiskey
Really,
for the
really
people.
great. I think the brilliant thing about that is, under 50 quid a piece, maybe you want to try 2 or 3 of them, and then maybe you think, oh, the Amarone or the I'll get the age statement version now, and you can get that accessibility to it. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I think that's what I've tried to say to people is if you know it and love it, then there's an older version available if you want it to be there.
Go and explore.
But at the same time, if it's great and it's the style you know and love, then you can pick it up, you can drink it on a Tuesday night responsibly and all that. But you can do that and and not have to worry about kind of breaking a ton to be able to drink a whiskey you like. So it's a nice mix.
Definitely.
But I hope you guys, what do you think of it? Of interest?
I like it. I think it's really nice. It's interestingly not as tannic as the 10.
Yeah,
the tannins are very soft, very gentle, very smooth, actually.
How familiar are you with Amarone as a wine?
Not really. I was actually, that's what I was just thinking. Is it always Italian?
Always Italian. So yeah, it's from Verona, or kind of the northeast Italy.
Yeah.
And it's made in a particular style, which is quite cool. So it's made in a method that's actually not miles away from Pedro Jimenez sherry before the fortification side. So what they do is they pick the grape variety is called Corvina, but they pick their grapes and they dry them in a pasito method. So they leave them on straw mats in the sun to partially dry some of the liquid from the grapes. So you evaporate out some of the water, you get more concentrated sugars. So it's quite a sweet and robust Italian. So if you go to Barolo, which is if you go to the west, you end up with this kind of big, meaty, kind of structured wine. Amarone is big and heavy, but it tends to be a bit more jammy, a little bit more concentrated than the fruit.
Cool.
So yeah, actually what you're saying is completely right. The tannins and style of Amarone doesn't tend to be as chewy and robust as, say, an earthy or meatier red, but you get this nice kind of sweetness to it as well that kind of comes in.
Yeah, and this is certainly pretty jammy for me as well. But it's kind of it's nice and soft is definitely right. It kind of good mouthfeel on it. I'm also getting quite an interesting kind of slightly kind of like foresty kind of note that comes with it, a little pine or something.
Yeah, there's a bit of a resinous kind of kick. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's a good tasting note.
It's interesting. I like it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's easy drinking, right? And I think this is the sort of thing that you could put in front of a lot of people, given that it's sweet, but it's not overly sweet.
No.
And I think this is the thing. Maybe if I was to try the older version of that whenever you release it, I love super sweet stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe it'll be too sweet for some people, but I reckon I'd love that style. I think this is kind of like quite down the middle. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like, I think you could put that in front of most people and they'd quite enjoy it. You know?
I think the bourbon cask maturations, you're obviously fantastic, but I think it also works really well as a spirit with sweeter finishes. I mean, as I said, the no age statement PX won a bunch of awards. Everyone I've spoken to really, really likes it. The 17 is great as well. The dram that really got me into Glencadam that doesn't exist anymore. I think you got a newer version of it.
This is the unadulterated version of the same thing.
You know what's coming.
I thought you might quite like to see it, but yeah, no. It's,
there was a few years ago a 17-year-old. It was originally called Triple Cask Port.
Right.
And I think that's actually because it was 3 casks of port as opposed to 3 different types of port.
Yeah, 3 casks. Yeah, literally, it was the literal meaning of the word. It was before I was in the company.
Right. Cool.
But no, we had a triple cask run. So yeah, this is so the one I've brought along is a cask that was of that grouping that was rated so high that we took it out of the grouping. So I hope you enjoy it later.
Cool.
But no, to your point though, I think so. So the house character of Glencadam. It's epitomized a little bit in the 10, but our new make spirit is like, it's got this really tropical, tangy note to it. From the distillate, it literally smells like pineapple juice. It's got this really sharp, bright, kind of tangy character to the new make. Should have brought you some new make. But it's, particularly if you've ever tried grilling or barbecuing a pineapple, which again sounds a bit...
You're speaking my language.
So that smell of it kind of sizzling and letting off those kind of bursts of esters is what our new make smells like. It's really tangy, really fresh.
Okay.
Really crisp. When you add that into your cask, so I say even this Amarone finish has started life in bourbon, that helps it rounds off these kind of sharper, fresher tropical notes. You get that kind of that development of a kind of bit of baking spice, but nutmeg, but you also get that kind of cushioning from vanilla, a bit of oiliness there. So it's a thick spirit combined with American oak, which gives you a buttery mouthfeel and thickness, which means, it's quite pliable. You can put it into quite fruity styles of cask. There's some that haven't worked as well as others, and again, we don't really need to release them. That's the thing. If there's cask types we've trialed, if I don't think it's good enough to kind of put in the Glencadam range, we won't release it. We'll use it for something else. And that's the great thing at the blending side as well. It's like having a spice cabinet of the weird and wonderful spices that you maybe only use once or twice a year. We can use these casks of I'm lacking that flavor in a particular product.
Have you ever considered like double blending some of those less successful experiments? So sticking together 2 or 3 different types of finish?
I'm doing it as a big mishmash. I'd be tempted to do like an accordion whiskey or something that's kind of just everything rammed together to see what happens.
I feel like you or I would be very dangerous to be given a position like Iain is in. We could make a business, but we could also break a business. It would be like walking a line there, wouldn't it? Right, a tightrope.
Really sorry, I've ruined.
Don't listen to us too much whilst you're here. We don't want to put your job at risk, Iain. You're doing a great job from everything we've tried thus far. Fair enough, though. This is lovely. This is really, really cool. So this one's non-age statement, and the one we're about to move on to is the age statement version of the Madeira.
Yes. So the one you're trying is the Amarone. This is the age statement version of the Madeira.
Cool.
So the non-age statement of the Madeira will be coming out at the same time as the Amarone.
I would love to try them. Sorry, I don't want to rush ahead. I want to try them side by side because I'm interested to see how a non-age statement versus an age statement works.
So it's a bold statement to say, but this is one of my favorite releases to date. It's definitely my favorite of this year so far.
I'm a big fan of Madeira.
Oh, cool.
I think it's really, really really cool. I love seeing nice finishes, and the fact that this is a 15-year-old. So for the age statements, what are the finishing periods looking like?
Yeah, so this is 12 years in bourbon, and then it's about 3 years and 2 months in the Madeira cask.
That's a
Beautiful.
great colour as well.
I mean, is it
So
not
I'm going to get
just
wine
that
nerdy on
is
you
like-
again on this one, but yeah, so this is using a very particular style of Madeira, which is called Tinta Negra. I don't know if you've heard of that before.
Go on.
Which is one of the few red grape varietals allowed in Madeira production. So,
Right.
Which is why it looks like Iron Brew. It's
Right.
got this kind of like
Iron
orangey.
brew. Okay, I was going to say it kind of reminds me of like honeycomb. You know?
Yeah, that's a nicer way of
honeycomb.
describing
But
it.
iron brew, cool. No, yeah. Look, we're in Scotland. Why not?
Or lager,
Yeah.
you know, it's that kind of, yeah.
So yeah, it gives
My
you more
God,
of
the
like an
nose is
orangey
good,
hue to
though.
it.
It is
Yeah.
good on those.
And again, this one actually stands out a bit more for me on the nose as not being 46%. I know it is 46%, so I'm looking at the 46% right now, but
Body
There's
and
a real-
mouthfeel. I think that
there's
body,
a-
mouthfeel, and balance is something I always look for in a whiskey. So
and there's a body to that. You can say that straight away on the nose. It's got some serious
So we're still at 46, are we?
yeah.
Serious
So everything
backbone.
until the last one to keep it as simple. 46. But yeah, it's interesting. The perception of spice and alcohol compared to mouthfeel is always a fun one to do. It's quite nice doing a blind tasting. I did a blending tasting with a group, a hotel chain that we work with, where I showed them a bunch of whiskies at different strengths, but got them to tell me what the strength was blind.
Right.
It's interesting how people perceive like wood spice and tannins and things for alcohol.
Yeah.
Because they do give quite a lot of presence. And again, it's funny. Again, in the whiskey kind of geek world, which I mean endearingly as one myself, you get lots of people that, can you not do it at cast strength, or can you not do it this? And I'm like, try it first. Like, don't just look at the ABV on it. Like, I promise you, it's got mouthfeel. It's not lacking. Yeah, just because it's not 65% doesn't mean it's.
One thing I would say to that, and question, seeing as you're here, why 46% flat across the range?
It just seems to be what kind of works.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun to play around with different ABVs.
Are you given that freedom, or
Not quite, well, sort of. The thing is, I've got to kind of disprove otherwise, and they all tend to work quite well at 46.
Right,
which is difficult.
okay.
So there's an element of I do trial whiskies at different strengths, but in most of the Glencadam main releases, 46 is the norm. Tom and Tell's a bit different because Tom and Tell's got lots of different ABVs, so we do 40, 43, 46
Yep.
cast strengths. But Glencadam's always just kind of been a default 46 unless otherwise. So single casks always cast strength.
for sure, But you've never done anything that's say 50% or 52%, just
Not
like
as-
another randomly picked sort of. But it works here, you know.
Yeah, not as a general release. I've kind of experimented in the lab, but never found anything that I've been able to kind of say, yeah, this is why we should do it at 48 or we should do it at
Whatever it is.
47.9.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just kind of a sweet spot, really. It's not down to uninventiveness either. It's just kind of what they've always pushed for.
Have you ever considered a Glencadam cast strength for the kind of the ABV?
Possibly.
Like this? Possibly. Okay.
That might be a debate I'm still edging, but it's not been negatively received. So yes, possibly. I think, on the 46 side, I think that the interesting part as a blender is if I know that I'm aiming for a particular ABV, then it shapes the way that I try to make the end whiskey. So I think that's why the longer finishes work, because actually, like say for structure, if I know that it's going to be bottled to 46, I'm selecting casks to make sure that at 46 is going to be bang on the money. So it's funny. So instead of reverse engineering it, where I'm saying these are good, what strength they're going to be best at, it's actually almost the other. Like, what's going to taste best at that? So I kind of gear it the other way a little bit.
Right.
But it's the pleasure and I suppose of being a master blender is it's kind of like playing in someone else's toy shop. You know, it's kind of these are all casks I have a say over, and I help influence their finishing regimes and their selection and their kind of ongoing analysis. But they're not my casks, I guess. at the end of the day.
You make your suggestions.
yeah,
Put your
yeah,
recipes forward, and then
pretty much.
hope that they're yeah, for sure. Well, listen, I mean, this is lovely. What do we think of this, gents?
This is juicy.
Right?
This is yeah. This I mean, look, 10 and the Amarone, they were great, but obviously they're at an affordable price range. I mean, what is the 15 coming in at?
So it's just under 100. So it's about kind of
Right, cool.
in the 90s, 80s.
Normal
I think,
for the
in some
market at
places.
the moment. This is such a level up in juice, in mouthfeel, in spirit as well. I find this is where it's getting really good, and I'm sure to go on when we go into the 18 and single cast, we'll be really surprised. But yeah, there's this lovely kind of like not plum. It's lighter than that, maybe like a peachy kind of.
I get apricot from it.
Apricots, yeah. There's juice there.
Yeah.
You know.
I think the reason I fell in love with Madeira casks recently, because we did a really cool Tom and Tell 15 Madeira as well. Not that the 15 happened to be the reason, it was just the stock that we'd chosen. But I think it gives people flavor profiles that they're similar akin to, because you get sherry-like notes, but you don't get the same depth. And that's not a negative. So sherry tends to be quite heavy, depending on the style of cask you're choosing and so on. But if you're using kind of, Oloroso casks, particularly kind of 2-year seasoned or whatever, maybe Oloroso, you tend to get a lot of depth and weight with that. Madeira gives you a lot of the fruit, but it doesn't give you quite so much of the heft. So you can let the spirit sing a little bit more, but adding on these top notes of these sweeter casks, these kind of the fortified casks that give you those kind of fruit notes.
What do you think, Jake?
I really like it. I'm struggling, to be honest, dude, to put my finger on what it is that because you said peach, did you say?
Something, there's a peach.
I kind of know what you mean.
Like
It kind of reminds me a little bit of, maybe it's just because it's Madeira. It reminds me of going to Portugal when I was younger. They had this incredible peach juice in the shops. I was just like, oh my God, you couldn't keep me away from it, dude. Maybe a little bit of that. But I'm getting, to be honest, the thing that's standing out to me, in my mind, it's wrong, but it's what I'm getting is like an expressed orange peel sort of scenario.
Yeah. In fact, we said this when we were tasting this before.
Definitely a
Oh, really?
there.
Okay, because I wouldn't sort of associate orange with Madeira.
Yeah, well, so I said that it smells like a glass after you finish your old fashioned. It's that kind of
Right, okay. So it is. It's that expressed orange peel. I don't know. Yeah, it's
it's kind of like a slightly burnt citrus sort of thing, or like an oily citrus.
an oily. It's that.
yeah.
It's the oily citrusiness. Yeah, like kind of like the pith of the inside of a
It's
peel.
spot on.
And the
that
expressed.
old-fashioned smell.
That's what it is. I in my mind, and I don't know why I'm saying that.
That
I'm wrong.
sugar,
I'm not
that
wrong. 'Cause we're all
bourbon,
agreeing on it. There you
caramel.
go.
Yeah,
So-
there's a sticky whiskey,
Sticky
alcohol note to it,
whiskey,
but
yeah.
with
sticky
a
whiskey.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it. Yeah.
with a good
brand
wedge of
name, that.
citrus.
Yeah, don't call it the 15 Madeira. Call it the sticky whiskey.
Sticky whiskey, yeah, exactly. But
Cool. No,
it-
I really like it. I think it's great. It's
Yeah.
delicious.
It's funny. So the Sommental Madeira we did is a different style. So it's Boal, which is more classic Madeira. So Boal is a white grape Madeira. It's very kind of sweet and rich, and it gives you a bit more earthy spice and more. Again, it's almost more sherry like in its style, without the same weight as described. But this one gave you much more of a kind of. Yeah, kind of. They're like brandy snap biscuits is another thing I create from this. It's like a gingerbread stickiness to it. There's that kind of citrus note. And it's funny how, although they're both Madeira casks, the two different kind of styles with different grape varietals give you quite contrasting
Definitely.
finishes. It's funny as well. So I remember having this discussion with the marketing guys as well, saying that, so the Madeira, I was like, why don't we say that it's kind of, Tinta Negra? But I was told the market isn't ready for single varietal Madeira finishes.
Right.
Which I can kind of understand.
Yeah,
so instead you just have to listen to me talking
It does
about
become overwhelming sometimes. But that's
Yeah.
the beautiful thing is you buy the bottle, you enjoy it. That's one thing in the privacy of your own home with your friends in a bar, whatever. But then you get to meet the man behind it or a brand ambassador. Or you go to the distillery, you immerse yourself in the brand, and all of a sudden it's layers and layers of exploration, which kind of adds to the whole experience. You don't want to give everything away at once, right?
No,
You want people to come up to Scotland, visit the distillery, get involved. So I can understand that. But I would say that that's very different to any Madeira cask whiskey I've ever tried.
And I mean, I imagine, obviously, people aren't generally telling you, right? You've probably not had a red.
And that's it,
Madeira,
right. But yeah, for sure. Really interesting. Really cool.
Thanks. Nice.
Finishing period?
3 years and 2 months.
Yeah.
Over,
Sorry.
So 12 years in bourbon.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry. I
Which
missed
again
that.
is kind of, we just call it a finish, but
Yeah.
all of our finishes are long. And
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
kind of instilled in me from Robert. So Robert's always kind of believes in keeping the seasonal kind of depth of finish, because obviously whiskey reacts very differently in summer to winter in the cask types. And it's something that we, again, I suppose the luxury of our site. So although I was saying it's nice to be a brand that maybe isn't in quite as high a demand, that we can take our time over product. The other thing is we have older stock, and I get that shorter finishes aren't a bad thing. If you're a younger distillery, if you've only got 3 or 4 year old malts, you're not going to have the luxury of sitting on it for 3 years as a finish. So a 6 month finish will give you a different style. You might not get the same expression from the wood, but you'll get the expression from what's been held in the cask before.
Yeah.
For me, if I'm paying a lot of money for special casks, I want to taste the wood as well as what was been in it.
Yeah.
And that's the luxury that you have of being an older distillery, that we have stock that we can lay down and we can sit and take our time on it. And I guess it's something that it's not a right or wrong, but when you try a finish from us, the youngest finish we've ever done is 12 months. Everything, most of it's 2 years plus.
But it makes the juice worth the squeeze, right? Like you
Well,
say, you want to get a bit more out of the cask. You don't want to just
Yeah.
like a little flash on top, and it's kind of then almost like separate layers.
Yeah.
Whereas this is an integrated finished product to me.
Yeah. So you're tasting the European oak in that as well. I think that's the thing. You're getting the spice from the wood there.
Aye.
The casks I've gotten very emphatic about are French oak casks, so Sauterne and Cognac. I've kept in long enough that you can really get that white pepper bite from the French oak, which is funny because a few people were like, "Oh, your Sautern's a bit spicy." I'm like, "Yeah, but that's because I want to take these casks are some of the most expensive casks in France. Why would you not want to taste the cask as well as the spirit style?" I mean, really, I'm just making a market full of whiskey that I like that no one wants, but but I'll be happy. No.
Fair play. I like it. I like it. Cool. All right. Well, I'm have to say I'm impressed thus far. This is cool. This is very, very cool and diverse. Right. 18. We're going back to bourbon then.
Yes. So I thought it's probably if you made me really choose, the 18 Glencadam is probably my all-time favorite Glencadam.
Cool.
It's maybe slightly hypocritical because I didn't make this one, although I did make this recipe. But yeah, I think the balance of wood and oak sings for me. The 15 Glencadam is awesome if you've not tried it before. It's like eating an apple pie with custard. It's really thick and rich and spicy. Uses a huge amount of first fill bourbon, so I think you guys would love it. But like I said, I probably bought too many bottles as it is. But I'll get you some 15 to try at some point.
You're very good.
The 18, I think, for me is you get the development of spirit. So the cask selection of this is very similar to the 10. So actually, if you want to re-pour the 10 to try like for like, what you're going to taste is the different and evolution of time. Yeah. So oldest whiskies aren't always the best. They will always cost you more. But there is something special about well-developed spirit. And I think that's the thing that it's hard to replicate. So although I gone on about getting people to try whiskies at affordable price points, yeah, they're brilliant. And again, you've got to drink within your budget and kind of never remortgage your house for a dram is something I'd always got to live by. But the 18 is pretty damn special. It's we'll pour it and I'll let you decide for yourselves. But I really like it. So,
cool.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
And I brought you a fresh bottle, so you can even do that.
You're very kind, Ian. Do you want to do the
Ian has actually already remortgaged his house today on our visit to Rosebank. So, how many bottles of that 33 did you leave
I could have
with?
done. Well, I could have had all 650 if they'd have.
if they'd have let you. There we go. Pop. Lovely. And as Ian is pouring that, I just want to have a quick stop here. Sorry, Ian, to plug this in. But we are very lucky that we have been sponsored by Glencairn. Everyone at home, you guys know we're sponsored by Glencairn. Now they've sent us these beautiful Capitas as well as a load of Glencairn glasses, which are down south. Glencairn are the only glasses that we really use in the studio. Obviously, on the road, we haven't been able to bring all of the wonderful jugs and pipettes and all the other bits and pieces that they gave us as well. However, we do still have the 20% off code, which you can use below. Please make sure you use it and buy yourself something nice or a present for somebody. You know, Christmas is coming up not too long away. So buy yourself something nice. What's the code, Stevie?
It's Uncut 20.
It's Uncut 20. 20% off. There we go. Cool. Is this one me? Is this one me? This is me.
Yes.
Cool. With that said, Ian, sorry, we just want to make sure we give the guys at Glencairn their dues. They're very kind to us.
And they make excellent glasses, so I can't fault them.
Can't complain, right? Yeah, I mean, we've used Glencairns for as long as I can remember, and we just met up with them earlier this year, and they've really kindly given us some support. So
nice.
Big shout out to them. And back to Glencadam. Fucking hell, that's a bit nice on there, isn't it?
See, and you rejected the 998. That's the
Ian rejected. Oh, sorry, is that the other one? Is it? That was the other single cask.
More, the even more amplified version of this.
Fair play.
Stevie might get a slap then. We might add an extra drams at the end of it.
Sorry, the reference to that is that I couldn't really decide which whiskies to bring, so I brought the guys a few different things to choose.
A few? Jeez. I mean, there are 5 here. There are many off camera as well. Exactly. Very, very generous of you bringing all of these and taking the time out of your day. Thank you so much.
You can just taste where this is just starting to turn really tropical. You know, it's starting to over ripen. You know, in the cask. This is lovely. So, how long has this been back for?
So this came back. I'm trying to think. So it would have been last year. Was when this came back into the fold.
And what's the response been to it being back?
Been very good. Glencadam 18. It's funny. The 15 is a fan favorite because it's very robust and in your face.
Yep.
The 18 is very elegant. So because of that, but no, the response has been great. The feedback's been good. We've won a load of awards with it. That's not meant in a bragging sense. I think Glencadam maintains a very high level of spirit. I can't take all responsibility for that because they were doing it long before I was with them. I just try not to mess that up, I guess. But no, they are the spirit quality of Glencadam is the reason it trades well. It's the reason that lots of other distilleries use it in their blends. I mean, the demand for Glencadam is high, even not in the bottled side. But people like the spirit quality, and it's pretty consistent.
Absolutely.
But I think you're right. I think that over ripening is interesting because And again, if you want to
Just
pour
on
the
the
10 to try,
turn, like it's just.
yeah, I think the brightness of the 10 kind of caramelizes a little bit, and it goes from being more tropical to more like peaches, and you get like a kind of soft kind of stone fruit note to this, which comes out more than the
Yeah.
than the 10.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
And the wood kind of mellows a bit. You get a custardy note to it as well.
That's exactly that. I noticed that the oak came through quite a lot for me on the back end of the palate on the first three, whereas here it's really simmered down, really rounded off. This is a wonderful dram. Yeah, Jake, what do you think of it?
I like it. I'm getting you said tropical fruit, you said stone fruit. I'm getting these bananas, mate. I'm getting these like not deep fried, like pan fried, bit of sugar on them, really gooey bananas, and I
like that.
It's really nice. It's
I like the pan fried because I was about to say I'm getting quite a lot of, like, in terms of the texture, like hot butter.
right.
Yeah. I remember showing this in the States, and the guy was saying it's like buttered bagels, like on like toasted bagels with hot butter melting into them. Like,
That's so interesting.
quite a
You
cool
said
tasting note.
bagels, yeah. I was thinking waffles. I was thinking pan fried bananas, demerara sugar, and like a waffliness to it almost. So that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, the grit of the frying is in there, but in a really good way.
I think the reason I love it is it's balanced, it's elegant. So like I said, the 15 is the kind of fan favorite on that basis of being massive, and I think the 15 is big and it's chunky and it's chewy, and it's fun for that reason. This is a bit more laid back, but it's really well put together. And I think that the reason I love bourbon casks when done well is that you get an intricacy to them. It's a whiskey that's quite complex. There's quite a lot going on, but it's not a powerhouse. It's quite well knitted. Like a comfy fitting sweater, it's kind of like something soft and silky. But
Yeah, definitely. It's nice. God, it's good, isn't it? I mean, it's just like it starts to dissipate, and then you go, want a bit more of that, actually. Why is that gone? Come back to me.
So, Iain, when did you discover Glencadam? Where did your journey start? What introduced you to the brand that kicked it all off?
So probably just kind of like before COVID, after I'd started my page, maybe going for a year, I was speaking to a couple other people. They'd tried some Glencadam, and then it was probably that port was the first bottle I tried, and then kind of, as COVID hit, everything else, met Iain, participated in quite a few online tastings that I've done with you.
I'm glad you said
Cody
participated and not suffered. That's as long as it's
Was held hostage at many tastings.
They wouldn't let me go.
Yeah.
Never suffer. Always a pleasure, genuinely. And just got more and more into it. Bought a bunch of my own bottles as well. I've also been lucky enough to be sent a bunch by the brand as well. And there's normally been kind of, 2 or 3 in the house at any point then since about kind of 2020, 2021. Was lucky enough to go actually visit the distillery. I think April of last year, Cody took me around, which was fantastic, because it's not until next year a distillery that you can actually
I was just about to
visit.
ask that question. So you're starting visitor tours next year, but you haven't done since.
No, it's quite a small distillery, and even the tours they're not going to be large mass tours. I think we can only fit about 8 people in the still house at a time.
Right.
What's your output there?
So 1.4 million is our current. We're operating at 24/7. So that's
That's your capacity.
Yeah, so that's hitting it. Well, at the moment not, because we had to turn the power off to get a crane in to take the roof off for part of the visitor center experience.
Okay, but normally you hit that 1.4.
So we're 24/7 production. 1.4 to 1.5. I think if we really kind of crank it in a good year. So it's not a tiny distillery, but it's small. If that makes sense.
And is everything going into your bottles under your brand, or do you sell a cask? Does it go into blends?
Yes, so we're a blending company. So it's a lot's reciprocal traded.
But you don't sell Glencadam as Glencadam, do you?
No. So we don't have that kind of. So it's traded as part as a it's a
part of blends or unnamed single malt potentially.
Yeah. So and that's kind of where we kind of built our heritage, I guess. Like I said, so Glencadam's been a blending whiskey for almost 200 years. 199 doesn't sound quite as cool, but it's been a really interesting part to a lot of brands that you've probably tried. And the thing that we find quite interesting, so Tom & Tell is the same. Tom & Tell was a 1965 distillery. Again, it was built to meet the modern demands of whiskey. And I think that when we bought on Glencadam, it's a very different style of project. So we have a modern distillery up in Speyside. Glencadam is 200 years old. Everything's built on top of each other. It's a distillery for making whiskey. You literally can't get a photograph of both stills because it's got massive kind of 4-foot stone walls that kind of compress it all in. And it's literally, you go up a set of stairs, you're in the mill room, down a set of stairs to the mash tun, up the back to the washbacks and then down again to
Right.
the. You'd bang your head every time. Literally, the
Okay.
average height in the 1825, I think, was 5'7".
Okay, I'm in trouble. Okay.
So yeah, I've brained myself a few times. And even then, that's something we're trying to overcome a little bit for the visitor experience because it's not an open plan distillery by any means. But it's made to make whiskey. So yeah, so the tours will be based around keeping its structure as much as possible. The cool thing we did was reinstall the water wheel. You've probably seen that on social media. So although it's very hard to make a new distillery a 200-year-old distillery carbon neutral or kind of completely kind of green in that sense, we are kind of conscious of the environment. We're conscious of our surroundings. But the old distillery was powered by a water wheel internally. There's a lathe off the back of our coolant pond which we always knew was in the distillery, but it's behind a 4-foot thick wall, or I think it was 3 foot for that one. But anyway, so we've opened that up. We've put in a wheel based on the schematic of the original.
Oh, cool.
So I think they were the only distillery in Scotland with an internal working water wheel, which is kind of cool. Does it affect the taste of the whiskey? No.
But it's a
kinda
nice
cool
little
to have.
bit. Yeah, no,
so we've
definitely.
opened that up and tried to kind of bring back a lot of the historic features of the distillery, which again, you have to come and see it when it's open and see what's going through.
Definitely.
Definitely. We'd love to do that.
So yeah, so it's not going to be like a Johnny Walker experience style visitor centre. It's going to be kind of quite heritage and kind of old school. But it's got 200 years of history, so there's enough to talk about there alone.
Absolutely. It's really interesting hearing your journey into Glencadam. And to be honest, sitting here trying this now and speaking with yourself, Iain, I feel a bit of a fool for not knowing this brand more. Do you know?
Don't. And I'll tell you why. And I was going to make this point a bit later, but now you've brought it up. Sorry to interject, Jay, there.
Go on.
But the reason I asked is, and this is no disrespect to you because you have your social medias, but I just don't see it. I don't see it on the kind of whiskey pages. I don't get, it's not. Maybe it's because all the other brands are probably paying for shitloads of ads and stuff. But that's exactly that. I feel a little bit gutted that I've missed out until now a little bit, But I just haven't been served it. Do you know what I mean?
That's true.
Or introduced it.
So
to
for
it,
me, I've always seen it at shows, and at shows you're plied with so much booze.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to sometimes pick the wood from the trees, and you get palate fatigue within 10 minutes sometimes of a show, depending on what's going on. And I always see it. And to be honest, you've always gone, come with me. Come here. Okay, try this, right? You always do it. Every time Glencadam is there. And fucking dib, mate. You kept going. And it's not that I haven't ever enjoyed it. I think part of it is I can't, as an independent bottler, I'm always looking for brands that I can buy casks from. Equally, I'm always looking, this is me.
Yeah.
Big sherry, big port, in your face, smack around the chop. I love that, right? Yeah. And it's not to take away from bourbon whiskies, as my God, these are good style bourbon whiskies. It's just not my typical style. And so I think I've just I feel like a fool though sitting here now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really do. I think people probably like you as well. Yeah, maybe there's an element of the social media
you don't
side
go
of
on
things.
socials a lot.
I don't go on socials ever. Yeah,
and I
I'm
live on
terrible.
them, so,
I'm very antisocial. But yeah, no, that's it. I think if that's the experience you're having and that's the experience I'm having, it's if you're at home and you haven't tried Glencadam, you've got to get along to a show. You've got to go into where can you buy these? Because I don't see them in the shops that much either.
Yeah, so we're a specialist only. So we only
Specialist,
find us,
and this is it. Go to your nearest specialist and pick up a Glencadam now.
Thank you. No, generally, I think they've always been kind of letting the spirit do the talking, and kind of they've been organic in their growth, really. So Glencadam sales are growing year on year.
Yeah.
And exposure is growing year on year. But yeah, so we'd rather spend the money in attending shows and letting people come and taste it than sticking an advert in a magazine. And that's kind of, they've done that a long time, which is quite cool.
I fucking
You'll
love
reach
that.
more people,
Cheers.
ironically, as well.
And this is it. You'll get the respect that you deserve.
Yeah,
Maybe it'll take longer to get people in, but once they're in, they'll be there
it's a kind of slow growth.
for life, right? Like this guy here, Jesus wept, he doesn't shut up about it all. And that's what you want. You want fans that become ambassadors.
Yeah.
You've got to try this, dude. It's fucking amazing, That's what... Yeah, this is really exciting. I find, I find myself at a bit of a loss now. I'm, so far into my whiskey journey, and now it's kind of like, shit, what have I missed here over the years? Maybe I could have bought some cool expressions that now are long gone.
The 17 you missed out on, to be fair. I'll try and bring it back someday. But
well, there you go. You have to now. There you go.
But no, it's cool to be in that camp. And again, it's not that I'm too cool for that kind of category. It's not based on that. But yeah, advertising's never been our focus as such. So whereas we've reached out to people and we've done, it's more that kind of classic tasting and kind of letting it kind of grow organically on that basis, and
for sure
people getting to taste.
I mean, obviously you need to do a little bit of the other thing as well.
Yeah, so
But,
we're doing
you
more
know,
with marketing now, and
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that is cause and effect as well, because I think people are asking more about what Glencadam's all about because it's kind of got that kind of Tinder going. I guess there's that we're not on Tinder, but it's had this kind of smoldering effect. that
Swipe
people are
right on
asking
all of
about it.
these so far.
But yeah, I think that that's kind of created an element that we are now in markets that we weren't before, where people are saying, "Oh, can you tell us more about Glencadam?" So there's a marketing team that are working that. We've got kind of people on socials now and doing that thing. I'm kind of similar to yourself. I'm always getting nagged by Johnny, who's a social media manager, that I've got a 1-year-old at home and I blend whiskey all day, and I don't really talk about whiskey much on social media. Mainly because I kind of when I get home I usually play with him for a while and then crash out on the sofa.
Fall asleep, absolutely.
But it does have an important place, and I think we're contactable is the other thing. If you guys do find us on socials, drop us a message. Like, we have people tending it. It's not like we're a big massive corporate where you can't kind of get near us. It's
And obviously you did
I like that.
tastings online. Do you do a lot of tastings around the country?
We do indeed, yeah. So we've got quite a cool brand ambassador team now, which again has grown through since when I joined the company, and it's so we've got Cody and Cameron who are out working the market a lot, and Gabby, myself as well. I do pop up for the odd masterclass now and again when they let me out. I'd say my social skills have probably taken a bit of a beating. I hide in a lab these days in a white coat, nosing butts. It's all that's where I reside these days. But I do kind of still come out and talk about the whiskies and go to shows and things. You'll find us at most whiskey festivals, and to your point, I think you'll find us in most whiskey specialists. So anyone who's professes to have whiskey tends to carry Glencadam, but you don't find us in supermarkets. It's not our kind of style. We don't really have the volume to keep it at that level either, I guess. It would be a flip side. Like, you never want to be that brand that does really well and then burns out because you can't keep up with the stock. I think that's the thing. We'd rather be able to keep our consistency going and let the brand grow that way.
Yeah.
Which is cool. It's a nice place to be, I guess. But
Definitely. Well, I'm very impressed thus far, and if this
you.
last one is the one that's supposed to do it for me, I'm very excited.
Can I mess things up a little bit and throw one more at you?
Yeah, I was going to say, we've got time, so if you want to switch
Only
it up.
from everything you've been saying about casks and finishing, I think you need to try that.
Cool. I won't say no to a lovely 17-year-old PX. Tell us a little bit about this whilst I pour.
So this is
Gents, pass glasses forward. please.
this is the big brother of Glencadam Reserva PX, which has won loads of awards this year, and again brought a lot of people into the kind of Glencadam family, I guess. But this is the high octane over the top version. So the Reserva PX is 45 quid. It's an absolute steal for the money. Not obviously I'm biased, but it's pretty tasty. This is the much older, much more robust style. So this is just over 4 years finishing in quarter casks, which is why it's as dark as it is. So this is PX quarters. For a pretty hefty finish on them.
Ian, some for you? or?
I'll have
Small touch.
I'll sniff along. But yeah, so it's pretty cool. But again, I've spoken to Ian about this before. Kind of when we're talking about casks and making sure they do what they should do long enough. PX is a cask that can be a bit big and sweet, but you can kind of drown out your whiskey a little bit. Yes, this is pushing Glencadam Spirit to a further extreme. It's obviously a lot of impact in a small cask. But these are really cool casks, and again, these are hand-selected Spanish oaks. So I want this to have chew and I want this to have bite. So good Pedro Jimenez sherry, if you've had a chance to try some really nice PX itself, not the whiskey finishing bit, but the sherry itself has rancio, it's got structure, it's got tartness and bitterness as well as sweetness, and I've tried to bring that across in this whiskey. So it's big and it's rich, but it's also got a savoury note to it that I really like.
Oh, wow, that does really suck every bit of moisture out of your mouth.
Right. So quarter cask finish, sorry, did you say how long it was there?
Just over 4 years.
Just
Just over 4 years, sorry, I missed that. Okay, cool. So 17 years, 13 in bourbon, 4 and a bit in quarter PX casks.
Yeah.
So this was
just
released recently.
Look at that. That's naughty sauce, that is.
Just for everything you've been describing
just-
about your normal style of whiskey, I thought I'll show you Glencadam built the style that you like him. So
You're a gent,
there you go.
absolutely.
Well, I think
Thank you very much.
we're all fans of PX as well. We've said so many times on this show, drink more sherry.
True.
We had a Malternus episode, and one of the things we had was a 30-year-old PX that was
Nice.
dark as the night.
Jesus. It's just like syrup.
yeah.
It was mad.
It's, you know that Pedro Jimenez done well should have more grams of sugar than Coca-Cola.
Right,
Per
yeah.
litre,
it doesn't surprise
generally.
me.
But a good one should be balanced. That's the thing. It should be sweet, but it should have structure, and savoury.
yeah, no, definitely.
If it doesn't have a Worcester sauce note to it, you're doing it wrong. That's my.
This is exceptional. How are we looking price-wise on this?
So this one is much more expensive. It's going to be about 135, 140, that kind of neck of the woods. Don't quote me on those because again, I'm not in the marketing side in that sense. But yeah, it's in that realm. So it's not ridiculous,
Limited
but
bottling,
it's
though, no?
limited bottling. Yeah. So this
Yeah.
one is one of 4,188.
Okay.
Actually, the Madeira is limited as well. It's one of 5,600.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And actually, the Reserva range are small batch, so they're about 6,000 bottles in a run too. So we do. They're not enormous runs. We always, if it's a small batch where we're doing a physical kind of release, we'll tell you the bottle number on it too.
The Sun
it
Made is back.
The Sunmade is back. It
Remember
is.
Sun Made raisins?
Yeah. A little red box with the lady on the
That's
front.
it. That is that for me. But it's. I can't get over the oak that keeps coming through on your spirits. I'm not being negative.
No,
about
no,
it.
no.
It's just there. It's very,
Yeah.
very, very present.
This is a whiskey that definitely drinks above its ABV. I think it's bigger. A quarter casks are volatile things as well.
Yeah.
And to be honest,
Oh yeah.
so I was waiting on the sweet spot of the threshold for this one. So you wouldn't want to keep it in the wood too much longer because it would become over extracted. So I was like, this is a whiskey we were checking every couple of months because it was getting to a really good point. And it's like, we just don't want it to go like buying into a table. You want to keep that chew. You want to
Overcooking
spice. But it's a funny enough. It's an interesting contrast for us in releasing this. It's probably the furthest I've pushed Glencadam Spirit from its standard character because it's not the brightness of the 10 and the 18, but there is a nice kind of citrus note in the background of this, which is cool. If you took a heavy Speyside spirit, like a kind of classic big multi-profile, something that's maybe a bit meatier or has a kind of touch of sulfur to it, stuck it in PX, it becomes very dense and very rich and heavy. This is big and rich, but it's not mega dense because you get this. There's an uplifting back note to this, or a kind of foreground note of this kind of citrus, and there's a little bit of kind of tart fruit there, albeit in amongst loads of prunes. And
So this is your creation as well.
it is indeed, yeah.
So I'm going to be honest. I love it. I think what I would prefer it is at 52 to 55%,
Fair.
which would probably wipe out some of that citrus and would probably become a little bit over. That's
Yeah,
what I love.
yeah.
That real.
That's fair.
Do you know what I mean? That real, just
Such a sugar
dense. Yeah, I am. But it would still have it has lots of structure here.
Yeah.
But it's not that kind of assault on the senses that I was expecting. It is a little bit on the nose, but the palate is much more balanced, which is a great thing for like more. But it's a limited edition, and that's why for me, if it was a more of a mass market or like a continual project, I'd get it.
Yeah.
For me, I would want to see it a bit stronger.
That's fair. No, that's fair.
You know, but I mean, it's good.
I think I tried to kind of. It's always difficult because you don't want to crank it so far that you lose the distillery character, and I think that's the thing.
Right.
The interesting part of this is there's no smokiness to it, and sometimes using particularly European oak smaller format casks, you can get this kind of burnt smoky note that you can get in a lot of Oloroso, which again is great depending if your spirit body can hold it. We did a 2006 single cask Glencadam, and single casks are a different beast that we'll talk about in a second. But for us, they're based purely on the quality of that spirit. It doesn't matter about the house character as such. It's just how good is that whiskey and is it worth bottling as a single barrel. We did a 2006 Oloroso Glencadam, which is almost the same color as this. It's insane. It doesn't taste like Glencadam, but it's if you like that kind of massive over the top, big massive whack of sherry, loads of depth, loads of structure. I think beef stock cubes and prunes. It's kind of big and heavy.
Okay.
So we have those, but they tend to come up as a single cask rather than one of the kind of limited or core range ones.
Hey, listen, absolutely, and I can understand that, and I think, look, like I say, it's beautiful. I'm just a picky fecker, so you know,
no, at all.
I can't help but be honest to a fault. It's good though. That is seriously good. You've tried this before.
I have, yes.
Yeah.
I did a quick Google on the price as well. £125.
Oh, there you go. I was overshooting.
Cool.
That's terrible salesman power, isn't it? I'm like, but it could be yours for 125. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think of that, Stevie?
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. Good. Man,
Yeah,
a few
as I
words.
say, like, sorry. Yeah,
Man, a
it's
few
been a
words
long
now.
day.
Yeah.
It's Black Forest Gatto and a flat white. That's what you need, and also what it kind of tastes like. No, I'm joking.
No, it's juicy. There's raisins in there, and as I say, that wood spice still comes through, and that may be to do with it's 13 years in bourbon.
Yeah.
But also, you've had such close contact in those port pipes. It probably is drawing more out of that wood than the bourbon probably did as well.
So it tends to be the European oak's more heavy for tannin and spice. So American oak gives you a more balanced spices generally. European's the one you have to keep an eye on more because over extraction in European oak's harder to do.
Yep.
Other fun fact: it's
More porous, right?
More porous, gives you a little bit more of a spice character. It tends to be more like kind of sandalwood, cedarwood, and those kind of notes. The other interesting fact is most of your sherry casks aren't made from European oak. I don't know if you knew that or not, but random fun fact as a quiz for the. If you're ever on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, I'll take a small royalty. But
I'll call you.
but yeah, because for that reason, so a lot of the new style woods of sherry, so your seasoned casks as opposed to kind of ex-bodega casks, a lot of these barrels are made in American oak. And the reason for it is that you can mature them longer and you don't get extraction. Again, for me, if I'm doing some sherry cask, I want to get some European influence. I want some kind of spice. But we're not using sherry casks by the hundreds of thousands, like some of the other distilleries which rely on sherry, and that's not a negative. I love a sherry cask whiskey, but for us, we can be a bit more picky because we're not taking the same volume of those casks.
Smaller batch things. You want to make sure they really hit the spot.
Yeah, or they do what we want to do with the spirit, I guess. Because there's no right and wrong in whiskey. I think that's the thing. It's finding what suits your spirit, and that's the best thing to do as a blender. The humbling part of being a blender, I guess, is that I can go nuts with a blend where I can literally create a flavor. So if we're doing a whiskey for tender for a particular market, and it's like, we're looking for this, I can use some of the dozens of distilleries that we have in our inventory to create flavors that are unique. When it's distillery style, the reason Glencadam is a distillery and as a brand as well is that it's a snapshot of that style. So you got to do true to the DNA of whatever that house is. Tom and Tal's the same. It's always fun to stretch it. And don't get me wrong, I've got a load of Frankenstein creation bottles that I just have kind of blended for fun that just are a bit off the wall. I should have brought them for a bit of fun.
Next time.
Always nice to trial the odd stuff, but it is, you kind of need to do right by the distillery too. So you got to kind of take that profile in.
Definitely. Definitely. Very cool. Very cool. Should we move on to the single cask? You're excited.
I am.
I'm excited.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Go on, Ian. I'll pass it over to you, sir.
This is an absolutely mad colour.
It is. It's ridiculous.
It's like you've just basically filled it with Ribena.
It is. It's extremely dark. So this is over 5 years in a port pipe.
And how old is it, sorry?
So this is 14, I think, at the time of bottling.
Oh, so...
Is it 16, sorry? Remind me. It was bottled in October 22, and it's 2006.
2005 to 2022.
17.
17. So
17.
yeah, I think it was 16 and a half when bottling, though, because I don't think it's just shy of.
Right.
That's where I'm getting confused.
April 2005 to October 2022.
There we go. So I'm wrong. It is 17.
And 59% on the dot.
Cool. So the flat cask strength there.
Yeah. So the fun thing with this is this whiskey was so Glencadam 17, as Ian was mentioning, is a bit of a fan favorite as well. It's a one of the range that's done really well. It started off as a triple cask. If you've ever seen some of the older editions of it,
yes.
We kind of scrapped that only on the basis that we had loads of really nice casks when it came to doing the batch 4 of it. So it was a triple cask from 1, 2, and 3. And then when it came to batch 4, we had about 8 casks that were really good. So we didn't just limit it to being 3. Also, the kind of the wording was a bit confusing because it wasn't from different woods. It was from 3 casks only. But yeah, so the next one will come at some stage. However, my day job these days is doing a lot of cask analysis. So it's looking at parcels of stock that age. And the reason that single casks are selected is everything gets a grading, everything gets a kind of, you balance them on their character, their flavor, their wood type, their interaction with the wood and extraction. And then they get grouped together, but also they get an end score, end rating. Nothing gets a perfect 10. It's always in decimals, but anything that's 9 plus gets marked out as exceptional. So these are casks that are pretty stellar. So in a selfish way, if you see Glencadam in a navy box with a single cask label, they're casks that I think are the business. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to final product, sometimes we'll utilize these. So there was a couple of exceptionals that went into that bottling. But when it comes to choosing our single casks, we pick a variety of ages and a variety of cask types that have only been come for this exceptional rating. So this is quite a special cask.
And how many single casks are you releasing kind of per year?
So that's probably about a dozen, roughly. It tends to do every kind of 6 months. We tend to do a spattering of single casks, and it's usually, like I say, a mixture of cask types and a mixture of ages. So we have different kind of bookends to that. I was going to bring you a 2007 bourbon, which was coming in at 64.3, I think. But I don't know how it was. Again, I couldn't decide what to bring, but we have some, and it drinks ridiculously well for such a high ABV. But we also have, if you like your Madeiras, we have a 1998 Madeira single cask at the moment, which is pretty ridiculous. But anyway, but I know you like the 17. What do you think of this as a snapshot of the 17?
Wow, yeah, I mean it's remarkable because there are a lot of similarities to that 17, but it's obviously kind of amped up and on kind of steroids, right? Yeah. Both in terms of the extra kick from the ABV, there's some more wood going on, but also the kind of the richness and the roundness and the juiciness of the fruits. It's kind of just a cornucopia of things going on.
Cheers.
Sorry, 59%.
Yeah.
Singing from the glass.
Yeah.
No nose prickle.
No, it does. You can. I think
You can
compared to the
tell
other
it's
46,
high
it's-
strength,
Yeah.
but it's not like, oh Jesus, do you know what I mean? It's just okay, we're drinking some whiskey here. Don't gulp it back, but let's see what's going on. I mean, blackberries, plums, definitely those tannins. Jesus.
On the palate and on the finish, though, even less than on the nose, right? Like it kind of drinks more like kind of 50 to 52 than kind of 59.
Definitely.
I think
yeah. I'd say 50. I would say flat 50 on this one. Definitely on the palate.
I think balance is a big thing we look for. So in the grading, when these are getting a score and when they're getting marked, the ABV, I actually don't look at the strengths when we're doing it until afterwards, because I asked for the samples to be sent without ABVs, because again, it influences you one way or another. So I taste it and base it on how balanced is the spirit. Sometimes you get surprised, like that 07, as I say, when we saw that it was coming in at the mid 60s, like, oh, that's actually quite strong. But it's on that balance of where the spirit sits. Because you can get some super high strengths that drink really silky and soft. You can get some lower strengths that are super aggressive and spicy.
Yeah.
But that balance that you're saying about it's there, it's present, but it's kind of cooling on the tongue. It's not like it's not kind of
it's
spiky or kind of sharp. But
There's almost a little bit of menthol kind of on the finish, right?
Yeah. 100%.
This is cherry lozenges. Right?
Yeah.
Cherry cough sweets.
yeah, a bit of soothers on there. That's,
All
yeah.
through, it is. It's cherry cough sweets all the way through and through.
Just going back for a second, I just something came to me when you said that bourbon cask was 64%, and obviously you said that still quite a fair amount of the stock is going off to other people. What's your filling strength?
So it's literally from still strength, so it's about 68 at the moment.
Okay.
In the kind of, it dances between 67.8 and 68.3 is kind of the highest. So yeah, we're just filling. We don't cut for filling. We just fill it at strength. It was kind of a company decision that took a while back. And I think that although yes, you lose more in your initial maturation, and obviously the different ABVs interact differently with the wood. For us, we found that the balance was although you get your initial losses a bit higher, it's kind of balances out quite nicely. So yeah, we've switched to filling at strength.
Okay.
For the meantime, anyway. But
In terms of trading and stuff, out like you just
yeah, it's the same thing. So I mean, most of what we trade is stock now rather than distillate, if that makes sense. So a lot of it is aged to a degree, but there's still some reciprocal agreements there. And I think again for that side, it's been really interesting from my point. So I was a whiskey geek that sold it in shops, and the reciprocal side was something I didn't really understand. But when we bought over the distilleries and getting more involved in that, a lot of effectively we only if you're a restaurant and you have your own field and you rear your own cattle or vegan alternatives or whatever it may be, but that you can only have the ingredients that you grow or you make. And that's the reciprocal side is that we have our 2 or 3 with Old Ballantrae, but we also our standard blends might use 24 different malts, so we'll trade with other distilleries, and they have the same thing. Yeah. And the point I was making before it was cool to see. So when Glencadam reopened in 2003, the distilling companies that came to us to trade for spirit was quite eye opening, because Glencadam appears in more than you might think. So there was a lot of big distilleries and big brands that you will have probably tried Glencadam, and even just as say a top note of 1 or 2% in the overall mix, it can add a bit of depth and structure.
The colour's so interesting on this. I've never seen a whiskey this colour before.
Well, what's funny is so that's because it's a cast strength as well. So if you see the Glencadam 17 Portwood, it's a 46, so the color mutes down a little bit. It gets it. Yeah, but that's in its unadulterated form.
Yeah,
but
this
it
hue
is pretty red.
I mean, obviously we've seen
is
dark
dark.
whiskies before, but this hue is just it's got this kind of like light blood red in it. It's really interesting.
I have seen one other whiskey this color. It was a I love what North Star do. Normally, it was a North Star port. I can't remember if it's full maturation or finish. It was not great. It was like someone had just added raw ethanol to ports.
Right.
And it's not really what I'm looking for in a whiskey. This is a whiskey with a super fruity influence, and the integration is just spot on.
Thanks. No, I think you're right though. You can make a dark spirit in a new cask.
Yep.
And you can stick a whiskey in it for 3 months, and it'll come out dark if it's a fresh barrel. But it doesn't give you balance as such, and that's not me having to go at those guys. But I think that
in general, I mean,
for us, I mean, we can fill into bourbon day and night, and we'll get a standard that is not only our house style, but it's also what we trade kind of as our bread and butter. So for us, for cask finishes, it's something that we take our time on, but we also we like to leave it long enough that it's got some depth and structure there, and balance, I think, is the key.
Do you know how much this one was?
No, I'm not even going to try and guess this one. I'm trying to think where it's at.
I will get Google out.
Really wonderful spices on the finish.
Nice.
Really, really wonderful.
I don't know, I feel bad leaving that, to be fair. It's but yeah, gotta go. But no, it's quite Moorish, and I think that's the thing that. So high strength whiskies for me, it's funny. I've kind of gone full circle. It's the same with like heavy peated whiskies and sherry. My kind of whiskey journey, I go through phases of like in massive amped up flavors, and I always come back to like refills and bourbons.
Right.
But yeah, I think that the high strengths fall into that camp as well. I think that it's something I kind of roll my eyes at sometimes in strengths, depending on which markets you go to and which festivals you attend and which masterclasses you do.
Yeah.
Lots of people want to do all super high strengths, and I'm like, yeah, like they're good, but open your eyes to other things too. However, that I'm always a hypocrite when you try something that's really good. At high strength. You're like, well, yeah, maybe it's done
this is why we do high strength. Absolutely.
Because you can hide it under high strength, but you can also really show off a spirit character if it's right. I think that's the thing, that it's the ABV doesn't demand it, but as long as the balance is there, it's
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, I would agree with that. Absolutely.
and whether you do it on camera or not, you should definitely try that. If you're enjoying the style and you like the balance, that 98 is pretty silly. But
Hey,
sorry to
listen,
throw more.
if you want to keep going, we're not in a rush. It's entirely up to you, Ian.
Sorry,
This is,
I waffle on a fair
Ah,
while.
we love a good waffle. Don't worry.
I was
Don't
seeing if
worry.
Ian had found the price.
So this one I think was £260. I
Right.
found someone who is selling it for 200 at the minute. I'm not going to tell you because I might have bought it before. And so it depends whether it's still in stock at that price. By the time
All
this
sold
episode's
out.
out.
Sorry, guys.
So you just bought it just now?
No, not yet. But
yet.
I thought I wouldn't be that rude and
But
wait
let's
until
spoil the end of the episode. We'll wait till we get to our roundup. Yeah, I mean, do you want to try that, Jake? Sorry, I'm offering up your whiskey.
No,
here.
it's,
If
like I
no
said,
one's in a rush,
Well, I mean, Joe. Sorry, you've got little family at home.
It's Ian, but I'll
It's
take
getting
it.
late.
Joe,
Sorry.
yeah, it's Ian.
So where did that come from?
Sorry.
Joe, you just said
Sorry,
Joe out of
Ian.
nowhere.
Sorry.
Hey, Joe.
It's been a long day.
Jimi Hendrix fan.
50% of people around the table have the same name.
It's been a long week.
It's okay, don't worry, don't worry.
Yeah, no, look, Ian, let's do it.
Yeah.
You tell us which one.
Yeah, have a sip of water and then try this. I mean, the white port finish is lovely, but it's the wrong time to try this. But since you're liking the high strengths, so this is Glencadam through and through, bourbon all the way, 24-year-old. It's pretty damn good. If you like the 18, I'm pretty much, since you said you love these big cask fish, I'm going to convert you to the come join us in the more elegant realm.
Yeah,
of,
absolutely. I've never been that elegant myself, but I try. So okay, see what we can do.
But it is pretty damn tasty. So yeah, like I said, I couldn't really decide what to bring you. My confession is these are actually both from my own personal bar. So although these are stock from the office
very
itself,
kind of you.
I brought you these. I say it's an occupational hazard of having a few whiskies in the house, but I wanted to bring you
Isn't it
some single
just?
cast to try. So
You're very
you,
kind.
mate.
Thank you very
Pleasure.
much. Very
Pleasure.
generous. Guys, make sure you drop in the comments a big thank you to Ian here. Most importantly as well, not only a thank you for this time, but if you want to see him on this show again, got a whole other distillery in
do
Tom and
indeed.
Towel.
This is true.
Got blends to talk about. There's all different sorts of things you can talk about. Drop it in the comments below. Big Ian, make sure you say thank you, otherwise he's not going to hear you. Okay, so thank you first, then Ian. Drop in the comments if you want us to do Tom and Towel, maybe another Glencadam episode, or if you want us to go down and visit the distillery, we might be able to twist Joe's arm and get him to come along.
yeah,
Sorry,
any
Stevie.
hate mail, please send it to Joe. No,
But yeah, cool. All right, so this is a 24-year-old
24, 1998.
bourbon,
single cask.
single cask. Sorry, pop the cork back in there. Don't want it oxidizing too much. Have you tried stuff like this before, Ian?
I have had a few single casks over the years. Definitely more of the finishes and the core range, but yeah, I mean,
But like single cask, I mean straight bourbon. Because I know you go single cask like me. Oh, that's dark. That's sherry. That's more. Yeah, that's a bit of me.
yeah,
that.
maybe not. I'm not sure.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
This
a
is
new
it's
experience.
powerful. So it's not as delicate as the 18. So this is first fill all the way through. So this is a fresh. But
Again, I mean,
3-year-old
56,
American
did you
cask.
say? 56.5.
So yeah, so you're going to get a punch and you're going to
There's
get
a little bit of
waxing
nose
from this.
prickle. There's a little bit of nose prickle, but it's not 56.5.
Even after that port, that's fucking
not
gorgeous.
unbalanced.
It's really,
It's
I was worried about going from the port to this.
yeah.
But yeah, it completely stands out on its own. It really does.
Oh, God, the palate.
Yeah.
The nose, maybe it's a long. In fairness,
The nose is a bit muted
we've
after the
already
port,
done
I
a
think.
fair few whiskeys today. The nose isn't. It's not joining for me.
Yeah.
So maybe give me a minute on that. But my God, that first sip, the palate's phenomenal. Very elegant. Exactly that. Elegant would be the first word I would use.
It's funny. I think the nose was maybe a bit drowned out after the port because I was kind of nosing the down. For me, this one's like Wall's vanilla ice cream, the yellow stuff,
Right.
the stuff that no vanilla has touched.
Yeah.
But it's like kind of a bit of that. It's kind of hefty. It's woody. There's a kind of resinous kind of note to it as well. A bit of nugget / nougat, however you pronounce it. And there's like an almondy kind of nut, kind of almost caramelized nut there.
Yeah, that nut note is good.
But it comes alive on the palate. It's like,
A long spicy finish as well, but very light spice. You know, it's
Yeah.
kind of like a white peppery. This is lovely.
Yeah.
this is how I'd imagine an elegant rye whiskey, which I know is kind of contradicting in terms. I like ryes. I think they're really cool, but they're kind of known for that.
I'd
chew
like
spice.
rye if it tasted like this.
But it's got that it kind of draws in the back of your gums a little bit, which is quite classic of a rye style.
Rye, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But it's got that age on it. It's got your kind of your polishing there, and there's that fruity note, which is maybe a bit different.
But it's like you say, it's maybe subtle white pepper, but it's not. There you go, a ton of pepper on the front, like you would normally get from a rye. You know, it's more balanced, definitely.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, and I think it's just placebo now. And after a long day for all of us, but you said ice cream, and I'm now thinking of those little moons. Have you ever tried those? It's like a Japanese dessert, so it's a ball of ice cream wrapped in like I don't know what it is actually.
It's kind of like icing, but not.
It's not icing. It's like it's almost like a soft.
Yeah.
It's not batter. It's like I don't know what it is. Like a dough. Yeah.
Oh, that's super interesting because
They do like a pistachio version, so it's ice cream in a doughy. Oh my god,
Sounds
they're
right.
delicious.
Yes,
They're really good.
I have had those now. I know exactly what you
They're
mean.
so good, and it's the pistachio one.
I'm
getting this,
I'll
like-
tell you what I was thinking. Like I took the ice cream note absolutely kind of spooning it out on a shortbread biscuit and just kind of crunching through that.
Yeah. That kind of buttery, the biscuits there. I definitely get so we had that buttery biscuit base. That's
Biscuit base.
The base. That's
channel
nice.
your inner Greg Wallace.
Exactly.
Yeah, we might need a license to have that in there.
That's great. Sorry. Oops.
Don't think we get claimed copyright-wise for that. But
I don't know. Depends how litigious he's feeling.
I'll pour you a dram, Greg. Sorry.
Exactly. I don't know. Get Glencadam on MasterChef.
know, yeah, there
Next.
you
God, that's good. That's really good.
I think, like I said, that it's a nice problem to have, and I'm definitely not disparaging other whiskeys. My whiskey bar at home is well stocked with lots of different brands, and I think that one of the things I love about the industry is being able to pick a flavor for your mood. Pretty much, if you're fortunate enough to have a collection of a few bottles, you can kind of decide a whiskey that you're in the mood for.
Oh God, my trouble is trying to figure out. Okay, I'm in this mood now. Let's
Well,
try
true.
and work through all of this shite to figure out what it is.
So I knew I was going to bring you a single cask tonight just for something interesting, and I was looking at a few. And I'm like, I don't know which ones to bring. So I kind of thought, like I said, I think the option I gave you at the start was elegance or opulence. It's kind of you got the one's over the top and one's kind of a bit more.
But again, like
refined.
two different sides of the same coin. Like it's they're interesting, they're cool, but they're very different. But they are Glencadam.
Yeah.
And like you say, oh sorry, was it you, Ian? Maybe it was you. Sorry, it's been such a long.
You've got
day.
the name right either way.
Yeah, I know, right? Was it you, Ian? I don't know, but I'm surprised that the distillate still kind of shines through here.
Yeah.
It's not shrouded. It's not overwhelmed. It's not port on top of whiskey, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think what would be interesting is in some way, like people who are kind of like all about the spirit would look at that and probably be put off by it.
Yeah.
Which actually you really shouldn't be.
Yeah, again, I suppose, although I was saying that the single cask, they are judged purely on the merit of that cask. So it's maybe not as based in the DNA, but it's still something we're obviously conscious of. Again, if Glencadam makes great whiskey, why would we ruin that? Like we want to enhance it. We want to show you different versions of that spirit, but it's the aim isn't to kind of cover it up.
for sure. And Ian, what's the oldest bottling you have bottled to date?
So I think the oldest I've seen in market was a single cask from 1978 from us, which was a single one of our single cask vintages. They come in like the square decanters if you've seen them.
Okay.
The oldest Glencadam that we have is maybe going to be bottled next year for 200th, and that's a bit older than that.
Oh,
But I think the oldest I've actually seen was 1974 out on market. I'm pretty sure I saw one of them. I think G&M have a 74 bottling from a long time ago. Gordon MacPhail, so that was an industry
Yeah.
relation to them. But yeah, I'm trying to think if I've seen anything older than that.
What's interesting, and I don't know whether that's maybe the cask or part of what's going into that bottling you just discussed. When I remember going around the warehouse with Cody and he's like, oh, here's some of our oldest casks. It just came into my head that actually that cask was originally intended for bells.
It was indeed. Yeah.
And it's kind of fascinating to think that that could have ended up in like some like ceramic decanter with Prince Andrew's head on it or something instead of.
Don't sweat it. That's a good name for a whiskey, isn't it?
And it's been
Sweat it.
sweat it. Has been saved.
Do you know, it was interesting. So when Glencadam was reopened, the person that reopened Glencadam was Prince Andrew. It was
God.
It was on our brochures for a while. And
I wouldn't say that. Don't tell anybody else that ever again.
It's a picture. So we came across it recently, and I was like, "Oh, that's aged like fine milk." It's not gonna...
Definitely.
But yeah,
Very good. Very good.
Fantastic. Right, should we have a roundup?
Let's have a roundup. Yeah. Yeah. I've been distracted, but yes, let's have a roundup.
You enjoying that a bit too much over there?
No, I've actually been distracted by something else, but I'm not going to mention it now. I'll talk about it afterwards because it's not relevant at all. I've just been distracted by labels. Sorry. Cool. Let's have a roundup. Ian, before we have the roundup, you've never watched this podcast before, I'm sure. You've got much more important things going on in your life. You've got a son and a whole couple of distilleries to manage. So what we do is we round up by giving our ratings, which are either buy, don't buy, oosh if it's really good, or bin it if we don't like it or if we think the money's not worth it.
That's
okay?
fair.
We're not going to ask you for your ratings.
Fair.
It's not really fair asking you to rate your own whiskies. What I will ask you at the end is what your favorite of these this lineup is, but also what you're most excited about what's coming up.
Yeah.
So have a little think
That's
about
fair.
that for the meantime.
Okay.
Stevie, let's start with the 10. Sorry, Ian,
Price.
where are we at price on that?
but yeah, mid-40s.
45. That's what
Yeah,
I thought. Okay, 45 on the 10. Glencadam 10. Stevie, the Dram Pirate. Where are we? 10-year-old,
For
45 pounds.
quid, I'm going to save my money for a bit later on because
Okay.
I'm going to be spending a lot further down the line.
Okay.
I like what it does. The oak at the end for me on the 10, it spins me out a bit. And I don't get on with it at the end, at the back of the palate.
Okay.
But I really enjoy the front. There's those vanillas. There's that biscuity note. I love that. And yeah, 45 quid to say, save my pocket money, mate, for later on. So yeah, Ian.
Okay. Not quite a buy. Ian?
I think I might be in the same boat. Also, I think the reserve. Can you still get the reserve de Andalusia?
Yep. Yeah, it's still there.
That's even a couple of pounds cheaper, and I think is also a fantastic introduction to Glencadam.
Okay.
So I also think the 15 and the 18, in terms of the way the bourbon works, is maybe a little bit more to my
Your palate?
my palate.
Okay.
But it's a close run thing. It's don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed it.
Not quite.
Not quite.
It's a don't buy from Stevie. It's a don't buy from Ian. I'm going to buy it. I need a bottle of this on my shelf. You're right. Look, it's not something that I'm like, oh my God, but I'm impressed. And I'm kind of annoyed at myself that it's not something that I've really taken proper stock of to date. So I want it on my shelf. I want to share it around. I want to tell people to fucking take note of Glencadam. And I think that's a good starting point for anybody, right? So it's a buy for me. It's a buy. £45, you can't go wrong. We moved on to the brand new Amarone, a first here for you guys at Uncut. A massive thank you again, Ian. Very kind. We
right.
do it for you here at Uncut, guys. We make sure we bring you the newest, that new. How much are we on this one, do you think?
Same sort of price as 10. So
Okay.
yeah, say a mid-40 mark.
£45.
Give or take.
£45.
£45, we're going to run it. Stevie?
Pass for me again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Same reason?
No, I'm sorry. I enjoyed it. However, I'm in this phase, look, we have different phases in whiskey. I'm in this phase where I want punch, strong notes. I would like to see this longer in that Amarone cask.
Cool.
I really would, for me personally.
Watch this space.
It's delicious.
Hang
right?
tight, it's coming.
Now, what I will
Give me
say,
12
if I was
months.
at the beginning of my
Joking.
journey, or
Yeah.
there was people getting into whiskey at home that were looking for something that's affordable in an Amarone cask or any cask finish, as you say, you have to start paying quite a premium, and that can put some people off.
Yeah.
And I think this is a really fair price for getting into cask finishes, and it does it well. As I say, I need to save some money for later. So
All right. It's a no from Stevie. Ian?
I'm quite surprised about that. I think this was super juicy. It worked with the wine really, really well. To me, actually, it kind of works as as a beautiful introduction to the distillery, but also kind of had some kind of links back to that 17 as well in terms of the flavor profile and how it worked for me and how it kind of wowed me, really. It's an oosh for me.
Oh, bong! It's an oosh.
That's 45 pounds. That's a no-brainer for me.
Sure. You
Fair
enjoy
play,
it, man.
fair play. You know what? I'm kind of more on Stevie's line.
All right.
It's a don't buy from me. I actually really enjoyed it, and if we had finished here, it would be a definite buy.
Yeah.
But as we've gone on,
This is it.
I'm like, I love it. And to your point, brilliant value for money. Get involved, cask finishes, have a go at something new.
Yeah.
Brilliant. It does everything you want it to do. And you've done a fantastic job.
Thank you.
I would just spend more money and I'll wait for the age statement.
But
That's
Iain,
what I want. Now that I've
it's
tried
at
it,
that
it's
price
cool.
point for that reason, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think-
Exactly.
That's
I think
your
that's the
market,
thing.
right?
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah,
So,
I think
you
that's,
know.
it's having things for all. I think that you don't want to be in a situation where, oh, you can't afford to drink the best stuff. You want to have whiskies that are on both sides, and I think that's kind of where it sits. And
Yeah.
if you're fortunate, I've maybe spoiled you a little bit by throwing you lots of the older.
Well, that's the
expressions.
problem.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I love being spoiled. And I am one of those people that's a little bit more frivolous, and I'm more than happy to spend the money when I really enjoy some like high-end stuff. So this is
Yeah.
the thing for me.
Yeah,
the only
that's
reason I
frivolous.
would buy the 10 and not this is because to me, this is classic Glencadam.
Yeah.
And so I would have that on my shelves to share
Yeah, to be
and
like
go,
this.
boom, here you go, Glencadam,
That's
Glencadam.
fair. Yeah.
Come in, you need to try Glencadam. Everybody, you are home, Glencadam. You know, so that's what this does for me. This one, lovely. I'm going to keep my eyes open and
Yeah, so
and wait
something's
for the
coming,
age
is it?
statement, you know?
You say, yeah.
Yeah. The age statement one takes time, Stevie. You've got to wait. You've got to be patient.
So I suppose
You
it's fair
can
to
go
say
back
that
in, it's fine.
if you've seen it in its younger alternative, there'll probably be an older version of the same thing coming out.
En route.
I'm there.
Yeah.
Stevie is sat there
working.
rubbing his thighs from behind the microphone. Oh.
All right, so we've done the Amarone.
Excited.
We move on to the Madeira. This is the age statement Madeira, 15-year-old, and we were at 90.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, 90 pounds on this one. Stevie, the Madeira.
I'm
where are you
sorry, again.
at? Oh, Stevie's not off to a good start.
Oh, Joe, you're letting me down.
3
here.
for 3.
wait, Ian.
You're not explaining this one. It's
Just
3 no's. Okay. Ian.
Right, I think my binnet is for Stevie at the minute.
It's been a long day. We'll forgive
you
him.
look good, mate, so you don't want to get rid of me.
I've got a bottle of this at home, so I think that's
Yeah.
it's a buy from me. Yeah.
Fair play.
Also, top tip goes great in a cocktail as well. A little bit of elderflower, nice highball for summer.
Cool.
very good.
Okay. That's a good shout. I said
Bought that
highballs
on
at
the
the
cocktail
beginning.
episode, mate, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, should have done. Sorry.
No, I'm with you, Ian. Strong buy. Strong buy. You know, we've actually talked recently, I'm wearing a Glengoyne shirt, about 15-year-olds being 90 pounds, and I felt that theirs wasn't there for me, you know? I love Glengoyne, and, you know, as we said, I like this, and I would spend 90 pounds on this. It's not something that I would just go, yeah, why not? But I think it was cool enough. I want it on my shelf. I enjoyed it. I think it was good. So, Madeira, that was great. Moving on to the 18. Stevie.
Price. Sorry.
Price in the 18 is about 125, 130 kind of mark. Same sort of price as the
So I really like this liquid. This is where, for me, being introduced today to Glencadam, I'm like, oh, there it is. You know, it's delicious. It's elegant. As I say, it was sort of that kind of just ripening into the tropical notes. I bet up at 2022, it gets really, really, really tropical. It's a push. It is a push. But if I wanted a Glencadam in my cabinet, this would be the one. So it's a buy from me.
Oh, there we go.
No, it is. It's great. It's you know, yeah, it is. It is. And actually, for an 18-year-old, it's actually very reasonably priced. I know your 15 is kind of on par where the market is now, but 18s. I mean, look at some other distilleries
Yeah, true.
up near
fair.
the £200 mark. So really, this is good value. It was a buy, Jake.
I heard you. I'm glad we're getting there, mate. God.
I think I'm 100% sure this is the first time trying the new 18. I realized that was actually April 22. I think I went to visit the distillery, and I tried the 18 there, but obviously it was a kind of a bottle that had hanging around for a little while.
Right.
This is lovely. It's super approachable. I think you could give this to just about anyone and be like, this is proper whiskey. And then like, oh.
And again, it's the growth from the 10 to that. on that same thing, right? It's just a grown-up version of
Yeah.
it. It's a more refined version.
And I think going back to my kind of justification for kind of just slightly saying no on the 10, I think it's because the 15 and the 18 are more to my kind of palate.
Yep.
So it's a buy from me.
Cool. And I'm with you for exactly the same reasons as the 10. It's a buy. You know, it's good to have that on the shelf, I think. Yeah. Buy. Cool. We moved on to the Reserva PX, which is a limited edition release. And I think I saw 6,000 bottles on the front. Is that right?
Just about 4,000. Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
for one. So yeah, so both the Madeira.
Oh,
and the
sorry.
Southern
It's
Limited
2006, 4,188
Yeah, yeah.
bottles. Cool. Okay. So a little over 4,000 bottles. And sorry, what was the price point on that?
About 125, was it?
Yeah, 125.
125 on the Reserva PX. Stevie.
Yeah, it would be a buy if I didn't buy the 18.
Fair.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because we've got to be realistic. I want to stay true.
Yeah.
Stay true to the audience. You know, we can throw around Monopoly money here.
No, that's fair.
125 quid's 125 quid.
Yeah.
A bottle of whiskey, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was super juicy for me. I loved it. So it would be a buy if I didn't buy the 18. Ian.
Okay.
I think it's really good. I think the way the PX comes through it balances the spirit nicely. It's not the kind of dousing you can get. It's a nice. I think I said this when I first tried it and talked to you about it. It's an interesting kind of blend of both old and new sherry flavors.
Yeah,
There is-
right. That's a good way of putting it, actually. Yeah.
There is fruit, but there is a kind of mustiness. There is
Dunnagey.
some leather and some dunnage that comes through as well, which is quite unusual. I've not really tried that. Normally, you're either fruit forward or kind of musty cigar leaf kind of dunnage forward. Because this balances both so well, I think again it's a buy from me.
Cool. It's a don't buy from me. At a higher strength, it would be a buy, but I completely understand why you've done it the way you've done it, and fair dues to you. But yeah, at £125, it's just a little bit too much of a stretch for something that I enjoyed, but I didn't enjoy £125 worth.
fair. Yeah.
So, but I'm delighted I've tried it this evening. And again, guys, this is the thing. Iain, well, maybe not Iain, but Glencadam, certainly going along to a lot of whiskey shows.
Yep.
In your whiskey specialist, you can always get along, have a go, have a chat with Iain or one of his amazing members of the team, and you'll learn a lot and get involved. So yeah, it's a don't buy on this one, but very glad I tried it. And now the single casks. Where are we at here? The upper echelons of society.
So did you check what
Yes,
this one is?
I did as well. So the port pipe, I think the RRP is 260.
Okay.
Although you can find it somewhere for 200 at the
Okay.
minute. And the 98 cask looks like it's about 330, 340.
Okay, cool. So are we going to work off 200 or 260? Because if it's available at 200,
It is, yes.
okay. Is it like, I don't know, you haven't said anything about where it's available.
Well,
There may
it's
be
fair,
one bottle, I
I
don't
don't know. So that's the thing.
okay.
Yeah, maybe you
It's
can
going to be a
have to-
rush
right,
after the episode, maybe. I don't know. Who can get the buy first?
have a fight.
Yeah, exactly. Wrestle your phone off of you. All right. Should we cut it?
200 quid.
Should we cut it down the middle and say 230?
Well, he's found it for 200 quid.
All right. If it's
Because if it's any higher, then it changes things, you know? You start getting...
well, I'm just saying if the RRP is 260, he may have
Where
found
did
it.
you
for
find it?
I'm not going to say, mate.
You're such a child.
Sorry.
This is going out like a month's time.
I like it, but you too, bastards. You too. I don't trust you.
Right. Okay.
Is this a retail...
It's an
sort of-
online retailer in
Yeah.
the UK that
Okay.
is
This is a-
reputable,
Fine.
reasonable.
£200, and that's what it's at right now.
Okay. Fine.
That's fair enough.
Stevie.
I really like this. This is where, like, this is more my speed. This is, look, it's cast strength. It's, sorry, is it cast strength?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is cast strength. You know, it's up there. It doesn't taste anywhere near what it is ABV wise. I love that cherry cough sweet note. I love the kind of juice in there. I love that kind of a bit of sort of tannicness for me. £200. £200 again. It's 200 quid. It's a lot of money for a bottle. Out of your single cast series, or the two expressions we have here, this would be the buy for me out of them. Granted, that one is obviously a lot higher. So yes, it's a buy from me.
We got there in the end. It's a buy from
If
Stevie.
I can get there before Ian.
Yeah, if we can find it. Right. Okay. So Stevie's a buy.
I think 200 quid is if it's retailing at 260, that's a good price, you know? Really
Definitely.
good price.
Posh.
So this is a really interesting one. It's like drinking something out of one of those coloured Glencairn glasses, right? Because if you look at it, and then compare it to what it actually tastes like, it's a different experience. That experience of then tasting it is fucking fantastic. And at £200, I mean, the original 46% version was about £110 anyway, and that was a few years back.
Right.
So for a single cask version of it on steroids, that extra ABV, the kind of fun and games of a single cask, that is an easy oosh from me.
Go on, give it some then, mate.
All right.
Oosh! There we go. All right, fair play. Absolutely.
It's a double oosh.
Dib. I like it. I like it. Look, I'm with you. I'm nearing an oosh. I'm not quite there. I'm not sure why. It's a strong buy from me. At £200, yes. I think, to be honest, it's because of the RRP actually being at £260. I'm trying to be a little bit more realistic to people at home. If you can find it at a steal of £200, it's very close to an oosh. At the 260 mark, it's a strong buy. So that's where I'm at. It's a strong buy. Yeah. And finally, sorry, did we say 330?
330.
330 for the 1998. And thank you again. Sorry, you said two of these were from your private collection.
Yeah.
Is it these two?
These two, yeah.
The two most expensive
Well,
bottles.
it's always nice to show this stuff. Again, I think that we were talking about that a little bit in pricing as well. I think that, and you guys have been at a distillery that does some pretty expensive bottles too. And I think that I'd rather show them off. I think that, it's not whiskey I drink every Wednesday evening. It's a Thursday. It's not whiskey I drink every Thursday either. But it's nice to be able to try them. And I think that's the thing. It's the same with these super old age statements and things.
Yeah.
Kind of, if I have the opportunity to show them, I'm not saying, go and fill your bar with £300 bottles of whiskey.
Yeah.
But to try a 24-year-old single cask is always a nice thing to share.
Very special.
And I think that's the thing that, these are, I brought them as a little treat to show you.
You're very generous, and thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate that. £330, Stevie?
I don't spend. I don't often spend that much on a bottle. It's getting up there, right? £300, £400, £500 is a lot of money again, to me. So it's passed for me. It was absolutely delicious, though. As I say, that's where it gets really kind of tropical for me. It's a very clean kind of aged spirit there.
Yeah.
Very, very tasty, but I'm sure you can appreciate it's a lot of money for one bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, it's definitely a special occasion.
And that's not, it's not a don't buy because of the taste.
No.
Just the price, for me personally.
That's fair.
Cool.
It's a tough one. It was absolutely delicious. Loved it. I think if I had £350 to spend on Glencadam, I would take the port pipe and a bottle of the 18 and walk away very happy. So I think that's where I'd place my money. So it's just a don't buy for me.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, for me, it's a don't buy. What I would caveat that with is I really enjoyed this lineup. You've actually done an exceptional job with just bringing along as many whiskies as you could and putting them in a wonderful order.
If only I had more hands.
And I know, right? But it's a wonderful order. You've put them in. You've showcased them in a really wonderful way. And actually what I would do, I wouldn't buy it myself. That's too much money for myself for what that is. I would buy that for a tasting alongside this and everything else that you've kind of brought, really, and get everyone to chip in. Because if you're paying, £20 to have a share of that, I think that's worth it. It's interesting. Like you say, 24, did you say?
24, yeah.
24-year-old Glencadam, 24-year-old anything. God, what were you doing 24 years ago? It's a long time. It's a hell of a lot of craftsmanship and patience that has gone into that. And that's due a lot of respect. And so for me, I would be more than happy to pay £20 to have a dram of that, share it with people in an evening, and do exactly what we've done here. Perfect.
I think as well, what I would say is if you had brought along one bottle, and that was the bottle,
it would have been a buy, probably.
It would be a pretty easy buy,
for sure.
Because if you think about it, actually, 24 years old, a lot of 25-year-old OBs are now easily pushing £400 or £500, and some of them as low as 43% ABV, and certainly kind of 46. And what you're getting there in comparison for less money.
You're right. This is the thing. We're in a weird sort of moment. We're betwixt kind of pricing of the old times and now this new era of pricing coming through. And I think particularly for yourself and myself, Iain, who have been buying bottles for a good bit longer, but even for Stevie, who's been buying bottles now for the last 5-6 years, pricing has jumped up that bit significantly. And so it's kind of like, oh God, I remember when this was only you know, that much, and now it's that much more. So, yeah, I that's a good point. Well made. But yeah, look, as I say, Iain, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
For bringing such wonderful whiskies. 7 drams we've had here. God, time has flown by. I mean, I'm thoroughly enjoying myself. We could do this all day, but we will leave you guys at home to crack on with your lives. You can't stay on Uncut forever. Iain, thank you so much for coming. Pleasure. Really, really appreciate it. It's been a wonderful evening sharing these drams with you. As we say, guys, make sure you drop a thank you in the comments, but also make sure you comment with a big Tomental, all capitals, if you want us to do the same with Iain on Tomental. And if you want us to visit the distilleries, you got to ask very nicely. Maybe we can twist the arm
See if we
here.
can make it happen.
We'll see
if you can suffer my dulcet tones another time, I will happily come back and.
If there's all these whiskies here again, I think I'll make it
time.
through. I'll make it through. Stevie, you happy you enjoyed yourself?
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Iain, thanks a lot. I really appreciate your time.
Posh, you happy?
You know it, I am.
Yeah. I tell you
Well, you
what,
made
mate,
this happen,
well
didn't you?
done for continuing to just plug away. Try Glencadam, try Glencadam. You've got to try Glencadam. And I can only echo those sentiments to you guys at home. If you haven't tried Glencadam, you're missing out. So please make sure you drop into your favorite whiskey specialist, along to the next tasting hosted by Iain or one of his team, or along to a whiskey show. Get Glencadam in your glass. Tell us what you think of it. But for now, that has been Uncut and Unfiltered. Doing Glencadam, Iain, Slán Siomh.
Cheers.
Take care, guys. Have a good one.